£2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, drinkers have been warned about a drop in the quality of French wines after poor weather conditions hit this year's grape harvest. Winemakers across France will make 240 million fewer bottles of wine this year, the country's farming ministry said on Tuesday. So should we think of switching from French to English? I'm joined now by sommelier and founder of Inflorescence Wines, Jacinta Madison-Williams. Hello, Jacinta.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. First of all, let's just think about the poor French.
We should.
Has this been a fairly universal weather catastrophe for France?
It has. Kind of across the board, we're about 22% down on last year's crops, which is quite significant. I think it's like one of the 4 years over the last century that have been this low. So,
and it's affected both quality and quantity?
I would say more so quantity. There's always ways of counteracting quality. It depends if people are desperate to make wine. They can obviously push out more watered-down grapes. There's been a lot of rain, if you hadn't noticed. Not only in France, we felt it here too. But lots of frost, supercell hailstorms have completely wiped out some crops. So in some cases, there's nothing to make. In other cases, it's just really watered-down grapes, and you want to pick earlier to make sure you're avoiding all those rains. But I would say more so it's quantity. But saying that, France is still the biggest producer of wine in the world. It might be taken over by Spain this year, but as a consumer, don't panic. We're not going to run out of wine. And we obviously have lots of lovely wine growing here now in England. So whether we do make a little jump for a bit to English wine, but there's definitely still lots out there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Water rip-off. Well, as your bill jumps to nearly 600 quid a year from April, water bosses are cleaning up with six-figure bonuses. But will they clean up your local river?
Yes, will they indeed? And stop that money. The head of the Electoral Commission says the rules around political donations need strengthening. This amid reports Elon Musk is set to donate up to $100 million to the Reform Party. Why are they only saying this now?
Up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's Waspy women betrayal, as some would put it. That's if they get a vote. Could this destabilise an already weakened Prime Minister?
And it could be a very lonely Christmas for Prince Andrew. He's decided to stay away from the royal family's retreat at Sandringham. Was it his choice? He's also now going to miss his family's traditional pre-Christmas lunch at Buckingham Palace.
And breaking news in the last minute, the Bank of England has held interest rates in yet another blow to the government's economic plans. Mortgage repayments will remain at the current rate of 4.75%. That's the bank base rate that, of course, informs those mortgage rates. We'll have the very latest, more on this breaking news very shortly.
I don't know about you, but I was hoping when Labour got in, after 14 years of Tory chaos, as they said, the economy would be stabilised, those interest rates would be coming down, inflation would be coming down, everything would be all great. And now it looks like you're going to have to wait a little longer if you are indeed a mortgage holder.
Must be said, this was expected, that these rates would stay at the level they are, particularly in the wake of the inflation news that we heard earlier this week. That uptick in inflation, the sort of reversal of the downward trend, well, of course, the tool that the Bank of England uses to control inflation is interest rates. Higher interest rates suppress inflation, try and cool down a heated economy. Although it must be said, the economy isn't feeling that heated right now. We've had 2 consecutive months of negative growth. And so I suppose there's some big decisions for the Bank of England to make here. On the one hand, we've got rising inflation, but on the other hand, we've got very, very low, even negative growth. Now, high interest rates...
Let's be frank, we could be heading into a recession. The economy has shrunk October, November. I mean, let's hope there's a Christmas bounce.
We'd need 4 more months of negative growth, because it's 2 consecutive quarters.
We know that businesses are hiring at a very low level at the moment. We've seen a large number of layoffs already. The economy shrinking those 2 months. I mean, things aren't looking good, are they? No.
But I think it would be a fool's game to predict an official recession. I think what we're probably going to see is what we've seen for the last few years, and that's fuzzy data where 1 month it's just marginally above 0 and the next month it's marginally below 0, and actually the average within the sort of realm of possibility, it's all just fairly flatlining.
Well, let's not be too miserable. Yes, that interest rate has been held for now, but there's lots to be happy about. But, of course, the news today as well of the water bills going up isn't fantastic. But we will bring some light as well as shade today. But do get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Is that the right decision from the Bank of England? And what do you make of those water bills going up yet again? That's after your headlines with Katie Bowen.
Tom, Emily, thank you and good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. And as you've been hearing, the Bank of England has left interest rates unchanged at 4.75%, meaning mortgage repayments will remain at that rate. Rising inflation and wage growth have persuaded the Bank of England's policymakers to keep rate cuts on pause. We'll bring you more on that economic news soon. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced this morning. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat environment spokesperson Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, Southern Water are saying. The response to that incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
Look, I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems, which the British public are rightly angry about, will not happen again.
To France, where this morning the lawyer of Dominique Pelicot, who has been sentenced to 20 years in jail, has said that her client is considering lodging an appeal. The 72-year-old Dominique has been found guilty this morning of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault in that mass rape trial. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. The government has announced today a £100 million boost for adult and children's hospices, the biggest funding boost in a generation. Children and young people's hospices will receive a £26 million investment. The government hopes that the money will go towards delivering the highest quality of end-of-life care possible for patients and their families. Health Secretary Wes Streeting spoke about the announcement earlier on.
Today we're announcing two things which are great news for hospices ahead of Christmas. The £100 million we're announcing over this year and next will help hospices to invest in not just the buildings but the equipment and the kit that they need to provide modern support for people, not just in hospice buildings like this but also the increasing range of hospice at home services. So it's going to make a real difference for people. And for children's hospices in particular, which are really close to my heart, we're announcing £26 million. That's an increase in previous grant funding that's been available to provide a wider range of services to a wider range of children and young people.
Sir Keir Starmer is set to face questions from the liaison committee today as upset grows in his own party over the lack of compensation for the Waspy women. The Prime Minister will face questions from a range of government departments and select committees. The Guardian newspaper reported last night that up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's decision to refuse a payout for the Waspy women. And it's also been reported that Sir Keir Starmer will appoint around 30 new Labour peers today. Sue Gray, Sir Keir's former Downing Street Chief of Staff, and former Labour MPs are tipped to be on the list. Two 13-year-old boys, believed to be Britain's youngest knife murderers, have had the minimum terms of their life sentences for the killing of Sean Zahahi increased from 8.5 years to 10 years at the Court of Appeal. The two boys, who cannot be identified, were given life sentences with minimum terms of 8.5 years for the murder of 19-year-old Mr Zahahi in Wolverhampton on the 13th of November last year. Those sentences have now been increased to 10 years. A deal has been struck to save troubled shipbuilder Harland and Wolff. Spanish state-owned business Navantia has stepped in to buy it. The Belfast-based company, which famously built the Titanic, was placed into administration in September for the second time in 5 years. Harland and Wolff is a subcontractor in part of a consortium that launched a major contract to build a new fleet of solid support ships for the Royal Navy. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Tom and Emily.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 12, and a reminder of that breaking news at the top of the hour. Interest rates now remain unchanged at 4.75%.
Yes, but 3 members of the Bank of England committee did vote to reduce that bank rate by 0.25 percentage points, but they were outvoted by the other 6. So there you go.
Well, this move follows this week's higher-than-expected wage growth data and, of course, inflation going up unexpectedly by 0.3%. So, given that there are higher wages, higher inflation, the Bank of England decided to keep those rates at the level that they were before, keeping them relatively high, trying to squeeze out that inflation from the economy.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, as we were talking about before the break, before the headlines, that growth, the shrinkage in the economy, yes, only by a little bit, percentage terms, but it's still there. So how are they going to get growth going? How are they going to get growth going? Apparently, the Bank of England has downgraded that expected growth from 1/4 to 0. So flat line, complete flat line.
Of course, that's sort of what high interest rates are supposed to do. It's a painful way to squeeze inflation out of the economy, but they do it by reducing economic activity. The sort of intended effect is there's less growth. But I mean, it's almost a political judgment that needs to take place. I mean, inflation on the one hand, growth on the other.
It's hard not to feel a bit punished at the moment. Anyway, we will bring you some bright news, and as always, we want to hear what you have to say about all of this. So today, we're heading up to Blackpool to hear from residents there about the ongoing cost of living crisis, how people already in poverty are coping with the current economic problems the country is facing.
Well, GB News North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper is live for us now with some residents in Blackpool. Take it away, Sophie.
Well, good afternoon to you both. Yes, we're in Blackpool today talking about the issues that this town is facing. Now, when we take a look at the national picture, we know there are issues for people with the cost of living all over the UK, but here in Blackpool, they're facing some of the worst poverty out there. And that is why businesses like the one we're here outside of, the South Shore Pit Stop Cafe here in Blackpool, they're doing what they can to support people in Blackpool who may be struggling. So we can head in now. We're going to have a word with the owner, Sarah, who, oh, it's a lot warmer in here than it is outside on those cold Blackpool streets, but we can join Sarah now. She's just behind the counter here for us. Sarah, very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
We were just saying the national picture is difficult at the minute. We've seen interest rates remain the same. We've seen inflation go up. Water bills have been hiked. How is that going to impact people in Blackpool specifically?
OK, so as you can imagine, everybody's going to struggle, but within Blackpool there is a lot of deprivation. People are struggling financially as well as mentally with that impact. For businesses like myself, we will massively struggle because people are not going to want to come out and spend what money they've not got. As a cafe, we have an ethos of support, mental health, well-being, safe, warm space and hub. So we need our customers to come in here. And if we don't get the customers coming in, we're not going to have a business and we're not going to be able to help and continue to support like we are doing.
Let's talk a bit more about that support. You mentioned the mental health support. Obviously, when people are struggling, that is so important that these kind of things are in place. What exactly is the support that you offer to the local residents here in Blackpool? OK, so we have a variety of different options that we have within the cafe. We do the 3 C's, which is our coffee, cake and chat, where we invite people down to have a coffee, piece of cake, chat about anything that they want to chat about. The entire team are orange button trained, which is suicide awareness and prevention. So should somebody come in that is in crisis, our team have the confidence to be able to approach that and offer the support and make sure that that person has got the help that they require. We also have a variety of community events that we have. We're doing a grotto and grub this weekend for between 60 and 100 children where they will get a hot meal. They'll also get involved in activities and see Santa and get a Christmas present at the same time. We also have a pay it forward board, which customers pay onto that board, and from that we have vulnerable customers that come through, use that board. We average around 40 people a week using the board now, so my worry is that if the inflations continue, that board won't stay alive and we're going to lose the support there for our vulnerable customers. In terms of the situation here in Blackpool, do you think the government is doing enough to support towns like Blackpool who are essentially in dire straits right now? No, I don't. There needs to be a lot more support in place. We have a high homeless rate, we have a high suicide rate, we have a high mental health rate. There's not enough there to help and support and guide people out of the rut that we're getting into. For myself as a cafe, we are neurodiverse, so we have work experience, we have students that come in to get used to working in a busy atmosphere that have got learning disabilities. Not many businesses do that, so there's just not enough. There's not enough funding for businesses to help continue that support in place. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for letting us into your wonderful cafe. It's nice to be a bit warmer than we have been out on the streets of Blackpool. There you are, not enough support for the people and the businesses in Blackpool, and that is what the people here are asking from the government.
Thank you very much, Sophie Reaper. From a warm cafe there, but I'm sure it is bitterly cold outside. Thank you very much.
Well, now, with one of the big factors which will contribute to the cost of living crisis in the news, that's water bills. Yes, they'll rise by over 36% over the next 5 years.
Oh, lovely. That means the average customer will now pay an additional £31 a year in cost. This is a bigger increase than the 21% off what first proposed back in July. They say it's necessary to address the so-called twin crisis of pollution and also water shortages. It is worth saying that those increases will vary depending on where you are in the country. They could be bigger, they could be smaller.
Well, let's get more on this now. Delighted to be joined in the studio by GBNews reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, people will not be happy about these rises in costs, but there is a big problem to solve.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the political choice the government has made here. We heard in the bulletins from the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, saying this cash will be ring-fenced for investment in infrastructure to stop and clean up our rivers, which we've heard so much about. You mentioned it just then. At the cost of the customer. They're going to have to foot the bill for this, and that's the bet they're making, that they will tolerate that because otherwise, the water is polluted. And, you're running a Twitter poll on this yourself, aren't you, Tom, I believe?
I am.
Not to plug it so soon, but it'll be interesting to see, that's not scientific, but it's interesting to see how that works out.
Absolutely. To me, it's this dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, either we accept having polluted rivers or higher bills.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's another choice, but there have been sort of politicians who have been suggesting that there is sort of a magic third option here, where no one has to pay any more money and everything gets cleaned up.
Hang on. People have seen for many, many years huge amounts of sewage being pumped into their rivers, their local areas where they used to swim, perhaps as children, teenagers in their younger years.
Yeah.
And they've seen this happening. They've also seen, at the same time, these water bosses getting quite a nice bonus at the end of the year. They've seen, dividends being given out, etc., etc. So how can the government make sure that this extra money that's going to come in through the water bills, how can the regulator make sure that is all going to go into making sure our waters are cleaner?
Well, that's what they're promising to do. I mean, they have just fined Thames Water 18 million for those dividend payments because there are new dividend rules brought in 2023 and they violated those. They've been fined. So I suppose that, the threat of financial repercussions, talking to Thames Water, they're in serious trouble. I mean, they only just secured a £3 billion emergency loan because they were going to run out of money by the end of March if they didn't do that. And they were also asking for more cash or, bills to go up even further than they have today. They're going up for Thames Water customers just over 30%, about 35%. They wanted over 50%. Southern Water, there are 58,000 homes in Hampshire at the moment. Some will be coming back today, but there are 58,000 without water this morning. Their bills are going up by over 50% over the next 5 years. So, wherever you are in the country, you're going to be hit by this. Some areas are going to be hit really, really badly. And it's that perception of fairness, Emily, isn't it? If you're a Thames Water customer and you see your bills go up and you see the sewage in the waters that you used to be able to not swim in the Thames necessarily, but hang on.
People should be rewarded for success, right?
Yes.
There is a perception, and I think it is a real one, that some of these water bosses have been rewarded for failure.
I wonder how much they've been constrained by the regulator, though, in terms of how much they've been able to charge. But the bigger thing here is, are we forgetting what the Thames looked like 30 years ago? I mean, it was brown.
Yeah.
It's become a lot nicer in the last... It's a lot nicer, although apparently the fish are all...
it's not
apparently there's a lot of drug runoff that goes into the water, so the fish mating patterns have gone peculiar because they're all psychedelic.
But that's tangential.
But that is tangential. But what I'm saying is that now we have 95% coverage of monitoring these waterways. Whereas, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't monitor any of these things. We could have had people happily splashing around in water that was actually very, very toxic.
Yeah, but Thames Water have absolutely ruined their own credit rating and their own finances. It's a complete disaster. Yeah. So then you see them taking out dividends and you think, well, hold on a minute, why are my bills going up to cover your mistakes?
Yeah.
There might be slightly cleaner water, but they've still mismanaged things.
I do wonder if we'll put that question to GB News viewers and listeners, the one that Tom's posed. He says, pick one, higher water bills or slightly pooey rivers. OK, so that's the choice for you. But is that the choice? There's a third option. Is that the choice or is that a false choice here?
What would your third option be?
Third option is maybe the water companies could be a bit better and the regulator could be a bit better.
£104 billion magicked up through better management?
Well, how do you know that's how much it will cost?
Because that's the money they've committed to clean up the rivers, yeah.
Probably end up costing more. Anyway, there we go. It's a debate that rages on.
This is Good Afternoon Britain, indeed Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Now, the government is fracturing about their choice to not compensate Waspy women for that pension age change. Can the Prime Minister afford yet another rebellion?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub, aged 18, and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoss Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by yours?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so... yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
How did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, like, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you away.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun.
Wow.
Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest.
Wow.
To be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face. Ready? 3. I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
What do you think? High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all, like, contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
this
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, Merry Christmas, Britain. It is 24 minutes past 12, and Sir Keir Starmer is set to face questions this afternoon from the Liaison Committee as upset grows in his own party over the lack of compensation for the Waspy women.
Now, the Liaison Committee is something that happens every 6 months. It's a bit like Prime Minister's questions, except you're allowed to have a follow-up question, indeed many follow-up questions. It's proper scrutiny for the Prime Minister around a desk rather than in a baying chamber.
Yeah, and it's the last day of term for our parliamentarians, so we're finished with a bang. He probably won't enjoy it. I can't imagine any Prime Minister particularly likes being scrutinised in this way. Anyway, the Guardian newspaper has been reporting that up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's decision to refuse this payout for the Waspy women. That is, if there's a vote.
Well, joining us now is the former Labour MP, former Minister Ivor Kaplan. Ivor, of course, the government has a large majority, but if there are 100 MPs that are thinking about rebelling here, that's a serious problem for the Prime Minister.
Always happens, to be honest. That's not a new thing. It's been happening for years for Labour ministers. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a vote that there may be some of those who decide to take a different view, and we'll have to see what happens in the weeks to come.
You seem very relaxed about it all. I mean, this does come in the context of difficult popularity ratings for the Prime Minister, and the polling currently putting Labour pretty neck and neck with not only the Conservatives but also the Reform Party. I mean, it's not looking good that now his own MPs are turning on him.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, there are groups of people who are in the parliamentary team, if you want to put it like that, and then there are some who add to that. So you can't always guarantee what happens. I mean, I know that you might think back to the days when I was a whip's office person, and trying to get people to vote in certain things like Iraq in 2003. So these things do happen, and whips have to get round and do their business. And I have no doubts that that's exactly what they will do. But if there are changes to make, I don't know the details behind some of that stuff that Keir Starmer will be talking about. I think he's at the liaison today, isn't he?
Exactly,
yes,
at 2:30.
Yeah. So that's going to be a clear area of policy that the members will want to talk about.
It's interesting, though, that this perhaps wouldn't be as big a political issue for the Prime Minister as it is had he not taken all of those photographs with all of those Waspy women in the years leading up to the general election, holding up pledges. I think there was one in 2022 where he said he would pledge to deliver fast compensation to the Waspy women. There is a matter of political trust here.
There are always things that the party that wins has got things that are said about it which he doesn't like. It's always happened. It's happened to David Cameron. It's happened before. It happened to Tony Blair. You know, this is not something new. But what has happened is that all of this is now photographed and kept. And yet, 20, 30 years ago...
So we now see the lies.
And we see it, yeah.
I mean, come on. They did use the Waspy women. A lot of politicians have done this, to be fair. Yeah. Have used the Waspy women for political leverage. Oh, look at me. This is a very strong campaign group. Yes, they've lost again when it comes to changing the policy and getting the compensation, but they are very strong. They are very strong. I mean, I think every single MP gets bombarded by the Waspy Women campaign, and these Labour MPs, and Keir Starmer himself, very happy to be there for the photo shoots, but duplicitous, Ivor. Come on, he is. Admit it.
Well, I'm not going to admit it about duplicitous. I think he's doing
the evidence is there
as a member of the opposition, and then another thing after you get to the point where it's a very difficult period of time in terms of what went on in the budget and what goes on generally about the current situation of where the United Kingdom is.
Now, Ivor, there is another issue that I just want to touch on in terms of our politics, because there is a moment of flux, I think, in terms of the polls more generally. We've seen these three parties, the Conservatives, Reform and the Labour Party, almost in the same sort of plane now in the polls, in the mid-20s. And this has a serious effect when it comes to elections and perhaps party funding. Would you be comfortable with foreign funding coming in to any of these parties in the coming electoral period?
Well, there are rules about what you can have as from the party point of view. I would also see that I think it's early days in terms of where we are. You know, what is it, 5 or 6 months since the election? You know, and we'll have to see, I think, over the next 6 months how things actually come about in terms of what the
I mean,
Labour
let's be frank, we're talking about
Party
Elon
do.
Musk here. We've seen reports that Elon Musk may well be giving $100 million to the Reform Party. It's neither been confirmed nor denied. We now hear from the Electoral Commission, well, from a former head of the Electoral Commission, or the current head, actually, that these political donation rules may need strengthening. Do you think it would look a bit dodgy if Labour chose to strengthen these political donation rules at the same time as there are reports Elon Musk might be putting his hand in his pocket?
I think given he is part of the operation for the next president of the USA, I think it would be inappropriate for that money to be available in any of the United Kingdom. But I also think there may have to be a look again at what needs to happen in the general terms.
Interesting stuff. Well, Ivor Kaplan, former Labour MP, former Minister, thanks so much for joining us here on Merry Christmas, Britain.
Thank you very much. Now we can actually bring you some pictures now of Giselle Pelicot leaving the court and thanking supporters. This after her ex-husband Dominique Pelicot. He's been jailed for 20 years for drugging her, there she is, and recruiting strangers to rape her. I mean, this is a story that has taken the world... Well, it's absolutely shocking.
Completely shocking. And of course, that I suppose the most remarkable thing about this whole case is that Giselle Pelicot, she could have remained anonymous. She could have had sort of this trial done in a very different way, but instead she chose to sort of be the face of it. Come out fighting, saying, I am not ashamed, it's these men who should be ashamed. I think many people will have thought, what a brave woman.
50 men. 50 men. I mean, the mind boggles. This is Merry Christmas, Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show, including President Putin. He's been addressing the people of Russia, having a bit of a call-in as well. But could his words force Britain's hand in the ongoing conflict? That to come after your headlines.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Your top stories this hour. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat environment spokesperson Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, Southern Water are saying. The response to that incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
Look, I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems, which the British public are rightly angry about, will not happen again.
And in the last few moments, Giselle Pelicot has said that she never regretted the decision to make her trial public and that she respects the court's decision after her ex-husband was sentenced to 20 years in jail. 72-year-old Dominique Pelicot has been found guilty today of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. His lawyers say that he is now considering lodging an appeal. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault in that mass rape trial. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's going to be plenty of sunshine around today, though you will have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. It's going to be feeling much chillier than it has done as of late. And the reason for this is because we have a brisk northerly flow spreading across the country, bringing in some air from the Arctic, making it feel exceptionally chilly, particularly with the brisk northerly winds too. But otherwise, after some gloomy days as of late, there should be plenty of sunshine around. Can't rule out a few showers, particularly around coastal areas, at times feeding in inland across parts of England and Wales, particularly across northwestern coasts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers moving through here, and they may turn a little bit wintry as they spread into high ground too, but otherwise plenty of sunshine, just feeling much chillier than it has done of late. Now, as we head through into the evening, there should still be plenty of clear spells across Scotland, but once again, those showers set to continue. And in those brisk north to northwesterly winds, it is still going to remain chilly and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England. Plenty of clear spells, but a few showers feeding in at times around coastal areas. Still quite showery across England and parts of southwest England, but across central and southeastern areas, it should be largely dry. Plenty of clear spells as we head into the evening. And most of those showers largely dying away as we head into the overnight period, so plenty of clear spells, perhaps just a bit more cloud spilling in from the northwest with some longer spells of rain as we head towards dawn for the western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But under those clear spells, it is going to be turning particularly chilly, unlikely to see any widespread frost, but we may see some pockets in more sheltered spots. Now, through the course of Friday, once again, there should be plenty of dry weather around, but this band of rain will slowly sink its way towards southeastern areas, bringing some heavy and persistent spells of rain at times too, with plenty of showers still following on behind. But across the far southeast, still plenty of dry weather, just perhaps a bit more cloud by the afternoon.
The latest GB News travel.
Found on the M1, all lanes have now reopened, traffic is easing and emergency repairs have been completed after junction 9 for Redbourne. The M20 coastbound continues with speed restrictions due to Operation Brock. Freight traffic heading for a channel crossing must go through the Cones area from 8 for Leeds Castle through to Ashford at junction 9. All clear though for the southbound side of the M11. An earlier obstruction on the road just after junction 9 saw a lane closure. That's now cleared and all lanes open. Southbound on the M6, it is also cleared to an earlier broken down vehicle from Knutsford at 19 through to junction 18. Westbound in Wiltshire on the A30 though, there is still a partial block causing slow traffic due to an accident at the A338 St Thomas Bridge roundabout. And that's your very latest travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 12:38. Now, the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, has said his forces are moving towards achieving their primary goals on the battlefield in Ukraine and are taking control of significant territory every day.
Well, speaking at his annual news conference and phone-in with the public, President Putin also made the bizarre challenge to the US to take part in a missile duel to test the capabilities of Russia's new hypersonic ballistic missiles.
OK, well, it comes as the UK Defence Secretary announces more than £200 million of additional military funding for Ukraine and also raised the possibility of British troops training local forces going into Ukraine and training local forces on the ground.
Well, for more on this, delighted to be joined by our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, what has Mr Putin been saying?
Well, quite a lot, because this annual event. It's a hybrid, really, between a news conference, an invited studio audience, and people just phoning in from anywhere in the country. So you can have Olga from Vladivostok calling in about her leaky roof, and he'll actually take those questions.
So that sort of issue,
yeah,
just a leaky roof?
Any issue you like, you put before the president. They want to show that he's there. He's, you know, someone who is in touch with the people and accessible to the Russian public. But of course, it's on this issue of the Ukraine war that so many people wanted to know about how he felt that was progressing and whether we're any closer to any kind of ceasefire. And he said, with regard to the war, that they were making very significant gains. Let's listen to one question from a reporter from the TASS news agency.
I have to say that the situation is changing drastically. You know it very well. I just wanted to confirm that. We see movement all along the front line every day. And as I have already said, it's not about moving 100 or 200 or 300 meters ahead. Our military men are regaining the territory by square kilometers every day. That's what I wanted to highlight. It's hard to think ahead and to foretell the future, but we are moving forward. And as I said, we're getting closer to solving our primary tasks that we have outlined at the beginning of the special military operation.
And you might be wondering what the flag was behind. Well, when he was asked a question about Ukraine, he then called upon people specially selected in the audience, not, of course, pre-planned in any way, to come forward and hold up this particular flag for the, I think it was the 155th Division fighting in Ukraine at the moment, to show solidarity for those troops on the ground, because we know, of course, Russia are suffering very significant losses in Ukraine, but they're still pushing forward relentlessly. And it's clear are gaining ground in the east and the south of the country as well, ahead of any potential peace talks that may well come under a Trump presidency.
And that 225 million in military aid, also the question of British troops going out to Ukraine to help with the training of Ukrainian troops. It's a lot of money. How much money are we now continuing to give per year? Is this a huge sum in comparison to what we're already pledging?
It's about £3 billion every year. So we have given just shy of £13 billion to Ukraine since the start of the war almost 3 years ago. £8 billion of that on Ukraine's defence. The other has been on sort of economic relief for Ukraine. So, yes, you're right. We're continuing to expend very significant sums of money at a time when our defence capabilities back here in the UK are being cut. We saw Royal Navy ships and also drones and other capabilities that were axed just a month ago by the Defence Secretary. But now, of course, he's out in Ukraine offering full-throated support and, of course, more drones, more munition, more money to help stay in this fight with great uncertainty about what's going to happen when President Trump takes over early next year.
Well, Mark White, thank you very much indeed for bringing us all of that. We're going to go straight to Downing Street now, to Westminster rather, where we can hear from our political editor, Christopher Hope, ahead of the Prime Minister's appearance before that committee today. Christopher, I want to ask you first on the big issue on the lips of many people in Westminster. What on earth is happening with the issue over donations, particularly a donation from Elon Musk to Reform UK? Could the law really be changed to stop it from happening?
Hi Tom, hi Emily. Welcome to a freezing cold College Green outside Parliament. We've just been with the PM's official spokesman for the last session with him this week. Of course, there'll be another session on Monday and the following Monday. We hear today from the Prime Minister's spokesman, they're saying that the government is working on how to limit foreign influence in our politics. They say the work started on that as soon as the government won the election in July, but there's no, we operationally, we understand there are no plans for any law in the next parliamentary session. We have got the legislative priorities for this government already set out in the King's speech, but the work in the manifesto began on day one. So they are looking at how they can limit foreign influence in our politics. Of course, the Electoral Commission overnight saying in The Guardian there could be measures to limit any kind of donations to a multiple or a fraction of the turnover of a UK subsidiary, and that would limit the scope of any Elon Musk investment in a party in this country through his UK subsidiary of X or Twitter. So, but as things stand, nothing planned for the next year, 18 months or so. So it leaves the door wide open, I think, for Elon Musk, if he can do it lawfully, to donate, if he wants to, millions to Reform UK.
To get on to Tulip Sadiq, because there are some concerning allegations there. But just one more question on the Musk, potential Musk donation, these political donations. Is it normal for the Electoral Commission to speak to The Guardian or any other newspaper on something like this?
Well, the Electoral Commission is the electoral regulator. They can talk to whoever they want to speak to. Emily, they can talk to GBNews if they want. They're talking more widely about foreign influence in our democratic process. There will be a review undertaken by this government at some point into how it does that, and the Electoral Commission, of course, number 10 says, will have a say and have put its own ha'porth into how that happens. You might argue the timing is interesting. We had The Guardian last week saying there could be a cap on donations to parties. That's an idea put forward by Tony Blair's think tank. That is not going to happen, we're told by the government. So it seems the left, if that's what you're driving towards, Emily, is getting concerned in terms of The Guardian is getting concerned about influence of foreigners in our politics.
Yes, just that timing.
Strange, given that the Labour Party was very happy to accept £4 million from a Cayman Islands-based hedge fund just before the election. Fine for them. But Chris, Tulip Siddiq, Treasury Minister, huge curiousness around what on earth's going on there. She's in a bit of hot water.
That's right. So Tulip Siddiq, her aunt was a big player in Bangladesh. She's now left the government there, and there's claims overnight in reporting that Tulip Siddiq is involved in whatever happened in this country. Now, according to the PM spokesman, he hasn't spoken to Tulip Siddiq, but the minister denies all wrongdoing and has removed herself from any links to Bangladesh in government. Now, Tulip Siddiq is a Treasury Minister in charge of corruption, and she will carry on with that policy area, but she'll have no more links, or has had no links since election with Bangladesh. But this one will run and run, of course, because we saw Louise Haigh having to resign over the claims about the issues with mobile phones. Now, as things stand, the PM has confidence in Tulip Siddiq.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Her name, of course, has come up over there. We'll see how this one develops. Chris Hope, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, if you are in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for you for the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There will actually be some hazardous weather across parts of southern Europe through the next few days, with a strong Mistral wind developing over southern France and into Corsica, leading gusts here of around 70 miles per hour and some hefty showers with that as well. Further east, and we have some heavy thunderstorms pushing across parts of Greece and into Turkey, and here we could see rainfall totals building up to around 200 millimetres. Elsewhere, there will be some fine weather around, with temperatures near or a little bit below average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Britain. Coming up, a new pill could revolutionise breast cancer treatment in the UK. We'll have the very latest after this.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday, and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect And then you throw me into the mix, and trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
12:52 is the time. A revolutionary breast cancer bill will be made... in fact, a pill will be made available to more than 1,000 women with advanced cases.
Well, joining us now is junior doctor, Dr. Basha Mukherjee. Basha, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, how does this pill work? Is this really the revolution that it's being piped up to be?
So, first of all, this is great news. It's always really exciting when a new pill comes into the market, and it really shows that our scientists are working hard, and cures or even treatments like this are being made and progress in the world of science in the field of cancer. So this is really good news for many people, for sure. But I mean, I think it's important to always take everything with a pinch of salt. This is a medication that's not going to be for everybody, because not all breast cancers necessarily are the same. This particular pill is specifically for people who have advanced breast cancer, and especially the type of breast cancer that is sensitive to estrogen. So this will not be every single person in this country with breast cancer. It'll be a very small group of people, but it can be make quite a difference for these small group of people. To you and I, it might feel that actually an 8 to 9 month, time progression, essentially, what this pill is offering as compared to not giving this pill. Essentially, it's giving people 8 to 9 months extra time to live, and also delaying the need for chemotherapy. That's what it claims to anyway, at least in the trials that's been done so far. I think for somebody with advanced cancer, that could be profound. So I would say that at least for a small group of people, this is really good news.
And it sounds like it could give people a longer life, longer to live, which is only good news. Thank you very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Basha Mukherjee, thank you very much indeed. These scientists, eh?
Yeah. No, I mean, very, very good news, but not quite... 9 months more life, fantastic for so many people. Not yet.
But you're getting closer and closer, though.
Yeah.
This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Coming up, water bills rise yet again, but can the government afford another flood of backlash from the public? That's after the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's going to be plenty of sunshine around today, though you will have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. It's going to be feeling much chillier than it has done as of late. And the reason for this is because we have a brisk northerly flow spreading across the country, bringing in some air from the Arctic, making it feel exceptionally chilly, particularly with the brisk northerly winds too. But otherwise, after some gloomy days as of late, there should be plenty of sunshine around. Can't rule out a few showers, particularly around coastal areas, at times feeding in inland across parts of England and Wales, particularly across northwestern coasts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers moving through here, and they may turn a little bit wintry as they spread into high ground too, but otherwise plenty of sunshine, just feeling much chillier than it has done of late. Now, as we head through into the evening, there should still be plenty of clear spells across Scotland, but once again, those showers set to continue. And in those brisk north to northwesterly winds, it is still going to remain chilly and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England. Plenty of clear spells, but a few showers feeding in at times around coastal areas. Still quite showery across England and parts of southwest England, but across central and southeastern areas, it should be largely dry. Plenty of clear spells as we head into the evening. And most of those showers largely dying away as we head into the overnight period, so plenty of clear spells, perhaps just a bit more cloud spilling in from the northwest with some longer spells of rain as we head towards dawn for the western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But under those clear spells, it is going to be turning particularly chilly, unlikely to see any widespread frost, but we may see some pockets in more sheltered spots. Now, through the course of Friday, once again, there should be plenty of dry weather around, but this band of rain will slowly sink its way towards southeastern areas, bringing some heavy and persistent spells of rain at times too, with plenty of showers still following on behind. But across the far southeast, still plenty of dry weather, just perhaps a bit more cloud by the afternoon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
But it turns out there's a growing number of grandparents who are now taking up the hobby.
And not all of them are male. 7 million gamers are aged over 50, 7 million of them. And we're going to introduce you to one this morning. Her name's Kath Bowie. She's 76 years of age, and Kath has become a worldwide star of the game Fortnite. Good to see you, Kath.
Hello, good morning to both of you.
And tell me this, Kath, is Bowie your real name?
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie.
Yeah, it is my real name, yes.
And you do it a Bowie and not a Bowie?
It's a Bowie, yes, definitely Bowie, yes.
Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie.
Bowie.
But that's not what the Jim Bowie was called, or Jim Bowie was called in the Alamo. He was a Bowie.
No, but that's what I'm called, Kath Bowie.
Oh, right.
She's her own superstar.
You are your own superstar. You are indeed. Well, so we're led to believe, Kath, that there's nobody else like you, or very few people like you, but there is. There is lots of people your age, your stage, doing what you do.
Yes, there's not a lot that streams. Okay, Fortnite, but there's definitely plenty that plays. Any game, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Fortnite. It can be any game.
So Kath, how did you get started in all of this?
Oh, yeah, well, it's 7 years ago, actually. I walked into my teenage grandson's bedroom and just saw him playing what I now know, of course, and what I play is Fortnite. And that was the very first week that Epic had released it. And it was just really love at first sight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of December. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
What a rip-off as your bill jumps to nearly £600 a year from April. Water bosses are cleaning up with six-figure bonuses. But will they clean up your local river?
Stop that money. The head of the Electoral Commission says the rules around political donations need strengthening. But that comes as Elon Musk is set to donate up to $100 million to the Reform Party, according to reports. So why are they only saying this now?
And up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's betrayal of the Waspy women. That's if they get a vote. Could this destabilise an already weakened Prime Minister?
And it could be a lonely Christmas for Prince Andrew as he's decided to stay away from the royal family's retreat at Sandringham. And now he's also going to miss the family's traditional pre-Christmas lunch at Buckingham Palace. Poor guy.
Yes, I do find it curious how the issue of political donations has resurfaced because of these rumours around Elon Musk and the Reform Party. Because people have pointed out that the Labour Party has received foreign political donations. Yep. The Conservatives have too. But the Reform Party, who are starting to do quite well in the polls, probably, you know, making the Labour Party and the Conservatives quite nervous. Now there seems to be, you know, a lot of pressure on the government to do something about this.
It is
it's
strange.
Not right, these political donations.
It was in the months leading up to the general election that the Labour Party accepted £4 million from a firm in the Cayman Islands. Now, if you're going to say that that's acceptable, why would it be unacceptable for someone who holds American, Canadian, South African citizenship? Who's referred to himself as English, actually, Elon Musk, who owns subsidiary companies within the UK. I mean, he's a Commonwealth citizen. Commonwealth citizens can vote in UK elections. Why should he not be able to put his money where he wants?
Do you know, I'm torn on this. I'm torn on this because I wouldn't particularly... I don't particularly like the idea of people who don't live in this country and who don't necessarily... They're not part of our social contract, they're not part of our society, they're not paying taxes in this country, they're not bringing up a family in this country, they're not working in this country, why they should have a say through their money in our democracy. But on the other hand, if it's already being done many a time with the other parties, then this is clearly a political move if they do suddenly decide to tighten up these rules.
There's a difference, though. Elon Musk has businesses in the UK.
Is that enough?
He employs thousands of people in the UK.
OK, yeah.
And in the same way that in the city... do you know, probably one of the best forms of local...
But what if it was a billionaire you didn't respect, you know?
Yeah, it's their
Investing
money.
in a different
If they want to throw
party.
their money into this country, fine. But this is the strange thing. I think one of the best forms of local government across the whole of the UK is the City of London. And in the City of London, corporations vote for the Common Council rather than the residents, or they get a larger vote, the corporations that are based there. I mean, is there... And there are and as a result...
What are you on about, Tom?
As a result, the City of London builds gleaming skyscrapers.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in the City of London, isn't there?
But I wonder, I mean, if you employ lots of people in the UK, shouldn't you have a right to participate in our democracy?
Does he have a vote?
Should he?
He doesn't. So should he be able to donate?
Well, should he have a vote?
Let us know. Let us know. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get in touch. But let's get the headlines with Katie Bowen.
Tom, Emily, thank you. It's just gone 1 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing a backlash with Liberal Democrat Environment spokesperson Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, Southern Water are saying. The response to the incident is being coordinated by the government. Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
Look, I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems which the British public are rightly angry about will not happen again.
To France, where Giselle Pelicot has said that she never regretted the decision to make her trial public and that she respects the court's decision after her ex-husband was sentenced to 20 years in jail. 72-year-old Dominique Pelicot has been found guilty today of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. His lawyer says that he is considering lodging an appeal. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault in that mass rape trial. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. The government has announced today a £100 million boost for adult and children's hospices, the biggest funding boost in a generation. Children and young people's hospices will receive a £26 million investment. The government hopes that the money will go towards delivering the highest quality end-of-life care as possible for patients and their families. Health Secretary Wes Streeting spoke about the announcement earlier on.
Today we're announcing 2 things which are great news for hospices ahead of Christmas. The £100 million we're announcing over this year and next will help hospices to invest in not just the buildings but the equipment and the kit that they need to provide modern support for people, not just in hospice buildings like this but also the increasing range of hospice at home services. So it's going to make a real difference for people. And for children's hospices in particular, which are really close to my heart, we're announcing £26 million. That's an increase in previous grant funding that's been available to provide a wider range of services to a wider range of children and young people.
2 13-year-old boys, believed to be Britain's youngest knife murderers, have had the minimum term of their life sentences increased. The 2 boys, who cannot be identified, were given life sentences with minimum terms of 8.5 years for the murder of 19-year-old Sean Sahahi in Wolverhampton on the 13th of November last year. Those sentences have now been increased to 10 years. A neo-Nazi who amassed a collection of weapons at his home and discussed an attack on an LGBT group has been jailed for 10 years. 55-year-old Alan Edward was detained after armed police swooped in on his house in Falkirk in September 2022. Police Scotland said a number of weapons were seized, describing it as an armoury. 14 knives were discovered and some had Nazi and SS insignia on them. A deal has been struck to save troubled shipbuilder Harland and Wolff. Spanish state-owned business Navantia has stepped in to buy it. The Belfast-based company, which famously built the Titanic, was placed into administration in September for the second time in 5 years. Harland and Wolff is a subcontractor in part of a consortium that landed a major contract to build new support ships for the Royal Navy. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Tom and Emily.
OK, Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 1. Now, there's been a lot of economic news. We've heard from the Bank of England that interest rate is going to be held at 4.75%, possibly thanks to the little uptick inflation. What else have we had? We've had water bills. They're going up. They're going up by £31, could be an average of £600. But at GB News, we want to know what people on the ground have to say about all of this, how they feel. And today we're up in Blackpool.
Yes, we're hearing from residents about the ongoing cost of living crisis, how people are coping with this multitude, this smorgasbord of problems that we seem to be facing before us. Our very own Sophie Reaper is live from Blackpool for us with some special guests. Take it away, Sophie.
I am indeed, Tom. Yes, you're rejoining us at the South Shore Pit Stop Cafe here in Blackpool, and we'll get straight into it. Joining me now is my very special guest, Labour MP for the area, Chris Webb. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously very important that we hear from someone such as yourself in this position. First, I want to speak to you about the national picture that we're facing right now. We've seen water bills go up today. We've seen issues with inflation, with interest rates. We've had fuel allowance cut. There's a lot of anger with your party at the moment. What would your response to that be?
We've only been in government a short amount of months, so my message to residents have been just bear with us. With regards to the water, these water bosses have been taking the mick out of residents for far too long. We've seen with Blackpool, for example, the Environment Agency said, do not go in our sea for the whole of September. That's because they've been pumping sewage. It's not good enough. We need to hold them to account, and that's what the water bill this week that went through the reading will address, because we desperately need to get our waters clean again. We know the economy's not where we want it to be, but this is a long journey. This is about rebuilding the foundations, investing in local services and getting growth here to create the jobs we desperately need in places like Blackpool.
A lot of people will argue you have only been in government for a few months, but decisions of the Chancellor, for example, to cut fuel allowance, people will say that that time doesn't really come into that, and a lot of pensioners this winter are going to be freezing. What are you going to be doing to support local residents here in Blackpool who are telling us that they can't afford to put their heating on?
Well, it's already on record that I didn't support the government with the winter fuel, and what I've been doing here in Blackpool is holding pensioner surveys. We've been helping hundreds get not just a pension credit but other support. We've made sure we brought a coalition through my task force of charities, volunteer organisations to make sure no pensioner and no family chooses between heating and eating in Blackpool this winter.
I want to ask you as well about the other controversy that we've seen in the headlines over the last couple of days about Waspy. Now, several of the Cabinet have gone against what they've already said, that they would support the Waspy women, but some of your other colleagues have gone against the government. What's your take on Waspy?
So I've been a supporter of Waspy since 2017. I've stood with women in Blackpool and right across the country, and I think they deserve a fair settlement. What we've got to look at now is work together across Parliament. I was with the all-party parliamentary group for Waspy just yesterday. We're looking at the next steps. We're saying to women, bear with us. We're here with you. We're shoulder to shoulder. We need to get you a fair settlement.
So you disagree with those Cabinet members who've gone against what they said?
I think what we've got to look at is what the government set out. We go through what Liz has said. We've got to look at the findings in detail. You know, it's unprecedented not to agree with an Ombudsman's findings. So for me, it's about, let's take a step back, let's look at this, and then look what we can do to support those women going forward.
I want to talk a little bit now about Blackpool itself. The reason we're here today, obviously, is because of the deprivation, the poverty, and the fact that last week we heard that Blackpool, for the first time in 20 years, has overtaken Glasgow as the lowest life expectancy for men. What are you doing to try and improve the situation for residents here in Blackpool who may be under the breadline, who may be suffering? I know we're in this cafe who they support a lot of local residents. What are you doing on the ground?
So what we've seen from these stats is the legacy of the last government. Blackpool has got worse. They tried with their slogans to level up, but they levelled up buildings and not people. And these deprivation stats are a clear indication of that. What we've seen just this week is record investment and an increase in the grant funding for the council of 9.1% and 19% increase in social care and a whopping 44% increase in the homelessness grant. That's real action that a Labour government's taken to support the people of Blackpool. We've got one of the biggest settlements in the country of increase, biggest of any town. It's only the major cities that have slightly tipped us. So we're investing. For me, this is about bringing partners and local organisations together in Blackpool. We've got fantastic charities, third sector. I've been on the front line with them, with the charities that I've been supporting and were part of before I became a Member of Parliament. We're bringing them together. We're going to solve these issues. Blackpool has the solutions to its problems, and this government's got their back.
Thank you very much for joining us, Chris. There we are. Chris says he's going to be helping the people of Blackpool. There's a lot of issues here that only time will tell if they are solved.
Well, Sophie, thank you very much for that. Live from Blackpool. Catch up with you a bit later.
Good stuff. Now, as mentioned, water bills will increase by over 36% over the next 5 years, meaning the average customer will now pay an additional £31 a year.
Well, it's a bigger increase than the 21% off what first proposed back in July. But they say it's necessary to address so-called twin crises, pollution and water shortages.
OK, well, let's speak to the campaign manager at River Action, Erica Popperwell. Erica, thank you very much for joining us. There's a lot of anger out there today because people have seen water companies, have seen a rise in sewage spills over the last few years, and now they're hearing that their bills are going up. Do you trust that these bill increases will lead to better infrastructure and fewer sewage spills?
Thank you for having me on the programme. Sadly, I don't have that trust. I think this is evidence that the water system's broken, that the water companies are paying large amounts to repay their debts, and the way that the companies are structured, that their debt is so high, and they're also managing to pay some bonuses for their staff and their senior management. There isn't the money left for the investment in infrastructure, which will help preserve our rivers and give people the service that they pay for.
Hang on, I'm looking at the numbers here. There's £9.1 million in bonuses to the executives this year. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. I mean, a lot of people will balk at that figure. But the amount they've pledged to put into the infrastructure to clean up rivers and the like is £104 billion. I mean, it's just a different order of magnitude. You could get rid of their bonuses, times that by 1,000, and you still wouldn't be close to the amount that they're spending on that extra infrastructure.
I think there is a point to that, but it's the message it sends about their priorities. Is it more important to pay bonuses, or is it more important to do a long-term investment and allow the water infrastructure that is needed to be provided? We need a fundamental overhaul of the regulatory system so that we don't reward poor performance and environmental damage.
Do you think water bills have been too low for too long? That's one of the counter-arguments here, isn't it? You know, if people had been paying a little bit more along the way, then there would have been more money for investment. So, yes, I share your anger at some of these water bosses getting these huge bonuses and essentially being rewarded for multiple failures along the way. But do you think maybe bills have been kept a little bit too low?
That's the responsibility of Ofwat, and I think, again, there needs to be some accountability for the regulators. Are they doing what they should be doing? Vulnerable households are already struggling with rising costs, so any solution must ensure that these households are shielded from further financial burden, and that's taken on by the companies who are supposed to be providing the service.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know that people feel very, very passionately about the rivers. And, of course, monitoring has increased hugely in the last 15 or so years. We've gone from sort of fewer than 5% of our waterways being monitored to around 95% now being monitored. And I think the goal is to get to 100%. I mean, we just know a lot more about what is in our rivers than before. I mean, it's entirely possible that our rivers are actually cleaner now than they were 30 years ago.
Well, what they were 30 years ago, I'm less sure of, but I do know that at the moment there are no rivers in good ecological state in this country. 85% of river stretches failed below good ecological standards. That's according to the State of Our Rivers report. And only 15% achieved good ecological health status. So whether that's improved or not, I think it's fair to say that's not good enough. And you're right, there's been a massive improvement in monitoring and evaluation, and there's amazing citizen scientists up and down the country and community groups who are helping to bring that evidence, and that's really important so that we can see what the true picture is.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed. Erica Popperwell, campaign manager at River Action. I mean, Tom, I know you keep saying that, 30 years ago, perhaps there was even more of an issue and all of this, and I don't have the statistics to hand, and you say that the monitoring has changed, so we can't actually prove that, really. But, I mean, just looking at the Environment Agency, I mean, just comparing 2 years. So last year, 3.6 million hours of sewage spills. The year before, only 1.75 million hours in sewage spills. That's almost double just in a year. So that shows that things are certainly not getting better.
It showed we had a lot of rainfall.
OK, so that's just down to rainfall. So what's this year, then?
Well, it depends how much. I don't know how much rainfall there's been this year. It was quite a wet... Basically, when we have a very wet year, we have more sewage overflows because it's the rainwater as well as the sewage all going into the same pipes and the system gets bunged up.
So
it's
nothing
Victorian.
to see here.
But no, the system should be improved. Other countries have a separate pipe for sewage and for rainwater runoff, and we use the same pipe. So it's a bad system. But if you're going to double up your piping across the country, that's an incredibly expensive thing to do. So yes, it should be done. But the question is, how quickly are we going to do this and how affordable is it going to be?
Well, who do you think needs to take responsibility? Let us know, gbnews.com/your say. But forget Wallace and Gromit. GB News has the must-see event of the season tonight.
Yes, tune in for Nigel Farage live on GB News this evening for his Christmas special. Nigel will be heading down to Kent, where he will be joined by an audience of 400 people and some very special guests.
You absolutely do not want to miss this one. I know who some of these special guests might be. Yes. But we'll reveal all tonight at 7 o'clock. It's Farage's Christmas special tonight at 7 o'clock. I do wonder if Nigel will be wearing that Santa hat.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. And up next, we're going to head to Paris to get the very latest from that mass rape verdict, which has seen Dominique Pelicot sentenced at least 20 years in prison. Those who have been sentenced to that horrific rape.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Cryptocurrency entrepreneur Justin Sun spent $6.2 million, £4.9 million on a banana, duct taped to a wall, a piece of art by artist Mauricio Catalan. Other artwork has recently caused controversy. A portrait of the British computer scientist Alan Turing by the world's first ultra-realistic robot artist, let us say ADAR, sold at auction for almost $1.1 million. Joining me now to talk about these latest hoo-has is art critic and mentor at the University of Arts London, Estelle Lovett. I have a feeling that in the case of the banana, it's quite a lot to do with the buyer. Now, you've researched the buyer a little bit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Justin Sun?
Yes, so he's a very wealthy cryptocurrency dealer. And of course, you know, everything now is AI and FTs, and it's the way that money's going, and it's very good publicity for him. So obviously, you know, he's not daft. But what makes this banana so unusual is, and it has, as you say, taken the art world by storm. It is the current spectacle, and what's amazing is that even during these very difficult times, the art market still manages to spend big on a significant fuss. Why has it created this fuss? Well, don't forget, the winning bid just happened in a matter of minutes. It took Justin Sun minutes to beat 6 other rivals, so they've all got mega bucks in their pocket. But, you know, it's conceptual art at its best.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 24 minutes past 1. Now, Dominique Pelicot has been sentenced to 20 years in jail this morning after being convicted of raping his wife and inviting more than 50 other men to do the same.
Yes, nearly all of the co-defendants accepted the charges against them, but some reiterated that she had consented to the sex.
Well, a mass demonstration has been ongoing since the announcement of this verdict this morning. Speaking outside the court earlier, Giselle Pelicot, the victim, said she never regretted opening the doors of this trial, as she wanted people to see what was really happening. Now, of course, that is the key crucial thing here, that this could have been a trial behind closed doors. But Giselle Pelicot chose to broadcast this to the world, chose to show people what was really going on. She could have remained anonymous in all of this as the victim, but was incredibly brave in bringing it all forward.
Have you seen some of the details of this? I mean, it's just so perverted. One of the men apparently assaulted Giselle when she was unconscious on the same day that his own baby daughter had been born. I mean, just let that sink in. I mean, it's just disgusting, and it's been a 4-month trial. I think it is fair to say that it's shocked the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't expect it.
Well, it's just...
Small town in France.
And it's just
50 men. What kind of pig do you have to be to do that?
And these are the 50 men that they've found, because there are serious suspicions that there are a lot more men that there just simply wasn't the evidence to bring against, or that they don't know where they are, because this went on for years. But the other extraordinary thing is the complete variety of men from all different backgrounds, from all different professions and jobs, and people who were sort of respected and pillars of society, all engaging in this non-consensual, sordid behaviour.
I mean, are these sentences enough? I mean, I don't know too much about the French criminal justice system, but 20 years behind bars? I mean, he's very old, he's 72.
That is the maximum, I believe, that they could have given.
The other men, though, they've got lesser sentences. The other men who decided that they would come and rape someone else's wife because they'd been invited to.
Of course, their argument
by some depraved man.
Their argument was that, oh, she was consenting to this. This was a game between the couple. It seems very hard to see how that could be believed, given that she was unconscious throughout the entire
One of the men, a
experience.
forklift driver who knew he was HIV positive. I mean, scum. I mean, there's no other word for it. These men are scum.
Let's bring you
And she's a very brave woman.
Yeah, let's bring the pictures of Giselle leaving the court after she thanked her supporters earlier.
There she is there in the crowd with the short bob. They're walking through. I mean, you can just see how much interest there's been in this case. Truly, truly shocking, just the scale of it, and also just the seemingly random nature of it. I mean, the man involved, her husband, called just known as being just an average bloke, really Mr. Average, you know, and the scale of this depravity. I mean, it's just so shocking.
But I suppose one of the big things here is what she's been saying throughout this trial. So often rape victims feel like they should be ashamed, that they're the ones who the shame falls on.
Yeah.
And she has completely turned that on its head, saying, no, it's the perpetrators who should feel shame. She's walking there with her head held high, and all of France, frankly, the whole world behind her watching this story.
And he filmed all of it, didn't he? I mean, it's just truly shocking. I'm interested to know, I mean, your thoughts at home, if you want to share them with us. I mean, it truly is horrific. And it has gone around the world. There has been so much intrigue into this. We're going to leave it at that. This is good. This is Merry Christmas, Britain. It sounds a bit strange after talking about such an awful story. But there you go. We've got lots more coming up, including how the UK has become a hotspot for, wait for it, Sharia courts. That's nice, isn't it? The Western hotspot for Sharia courts.
But are these councils actually just a sign of harmless multiculturalism? We'll have that discussion.
Nothing to worry about.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's going to be plenty of sunshine around today, though you will have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. It's going to be feeling much chillier than it has done as of late. And the reason for this is because we have a brisk northerly flow spreading across the country, bringing in some air from the Arctic, making it feel exceptionally chilly, particularly with the brisk northerly winds too. But otherwise, after some gloomy days as of late, there should be plenty of sunshine around. Can't rule out a few showers, particularly around coastal areas, at times feeding in inland across parts of England and Wales, particularly across northwestern coasts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers moving through here, and they may turn a little bit wintry as they spread into high ground too, but otherwise plenty of sunshine, just feeling much chillier than it has done of late. Now, as we head through into the evening, there should still be plenty of clear spells across Scotland, but once again, those showers set to continue. And in those brisk north to northwesterly winds, it is still going to remain chilly and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England. Plenty of clear spells, but a few showers feeding in at times around coastal areas. Still quite showery across England and parts of southwest England, but across central and southeastern areas, it should be largely dry. Plenty of clear spells as we head into the evening. And most of those showers largely dying away as we head into the overnight period, so plenty of clear spells, perhaps just a bit more cloud spilling in from the northwest with some longer spells of rain as we head towards dawn for the western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But under those clear spells, it is going to be turning particularly chilly, unlikely to see any widespread frost, but we may see some pockets in more sheltered spots. Now, through the course of Friday, once again, there should be plenty of dry weather around, but this band of rain will slowly sink its way towards southeastern areas, bringing some heavy and persistent spells of rain at times too, with plenty of showers still following on behind. But across the far southeast, still plenty of dry weather, just perhaps a bit more cloud by the afternoon.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, hello, I'm Jules Buckley. West Yorkshire, eastbound M62, a lane closed on the exit slip coming off at Castleford at junction 31. There's a breakdown there's causing 1 or 2 delays. The anti-clock M60 slow going, 2 lanes are out, Worsley to Eccles. That's junction 13 to 12, whilst a collision there is dealt with. This stop-start on the approach. And the southbound M6 in Warwickshire has 2 lanes out as well, around Coventry, junction 3 down towards 2, so down towards the turn-off of the M69. A collision there is causing delays as well. And in Bedfordshire, still some queues on the northbound M1 around Luton. Junction 10 up to 11, it's slow in patches. It follows an earlier collision there, but it's better news. All lanes have reopened inside the last 15 minutes. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, it's 32 minutes past 1. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB Newsroom. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat environment spokesperson Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water due to a technical issue today, Southern Water are saying. The response to the incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
Look, I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems, which the British public are rightly angry about, will not happen again.
Giselle Pelicot has said that she never regretted the decision to make her trial public and that she respects the court's decision after her ex-husband was sentenced to 20 years in jail. 72-year-old Dominique Pelicot has been found guilty today of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. His lawyer says that he is now considering lodging an appeal. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault in that mass rape trial. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's get your finance report.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2615 and €1.2128 euros. The price of gold is £2,064.74 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,105 points.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
OK, Merry Christmas, Britain. It is now 35 minutes past 1, and Britain has emerged as the so-called Western capital for Sharia courts. 85 of them are now operating throughout the UK.
Well, these Islamic councils, which are becoming increasingly influential amongst certain communities, typically consists of panels of Islamic scholars who issue religious rulings on matters such as marriage or divorce.
But are they compatible with British values? Some have come out to say that they should be banned entirely. Should they? Well, to debate this, we're joined by Chairman of the Glasgow Conservative Association, Naveed Ajgar, who defends the use of Sharia courts, and the Director of the Next Gen Centre at the Adam Smith Institute, Sam Bidwell, who doesn't think Sharia courts are compatible with Western values. OK, Naveed, there is a concern that we've got a sort of quasi-legal system only for Muslim people in this country, and that it doesn't show that there's great integration. What do you think?
I totally don't agree with that. There's certainly not a quasi, legal system separate to the UK courts. Sharia law is basically an arbitration system. It is there for guidance, and it is informal. And it's only if two parties agree to be there to receive this guidance. And this guidance does actually support UK law in the sense of that it takes away a backlog. We all know how busy the court system is. And in cases of marriage, divorce, and sometimes business and finance, especially with family businesses, because a lot of the Muslim community, when they go into business, they go into partnership with brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, etc. It means that if these cases can be taken outside the legal system and with agreement, and people can carry on and live their life. It does not overrule UK law, and it doesn't overrule UK decisions made by courts either.
That's an interesting point. Let's throw that over to Sam Bidwell. Sam, I thought you were quite a libertarian kind of chap in many ways. If I wanted to set up Harwood arbitration and two people came to me and I said, this is how you should settle your dispute, I mean, surely that shouldn't be illegal. I mean, these aren't operate. It's not a quasi-judicial system, is it?
Well, look, let's not pretend that this is just another form of alternative dispute resolution. The UK legal system does have other forms of ADR that it allows, but there are numerous cases of these courts being used to pressure women into things like arbitration with their abusers. That's a matter of public record, that's not conjecture. This is lending state legitimacy to a set of religious norms which are completely out of step with the ethical and moral norms of many people up and down the country. Now, it is true that arbitration has a role to play in clearing the court backlogs and in making sure that people get justice and that justice is served, whether that's in commercial law or in family law. But we're not dealing here with normal ADR. We're dealing with a state-backed, a state-endorsed institution, which is allowing coercion within communities to continue apace, and which is undermining the British state's ability to enforce a single body of law. I mean, let's remember that's another principle of liberal democracy is the rule of law and the application of consistent legal norms and consistent ethical norms across the population.
Yeah, Naveed, a lot of people will find it, maybe a bit offensive that a lot of people in this country want to sort of solve their problems, arbitrate, deal with divorce, etc., in a completely different system under based on Islamic principles. I mean, this is Britain. Should we not all resolve our issues sort of under a Western British way of doing things, Naveed?
We, as United Kingdom, we've just came out of Brexit. We also adhere to rules of the European Union. You know, we're with the United Nations Charter. So as a country, we're, are being arbitrated and being given laws and rules, sets of rules from around the world. In a global society, we need to work with those systems. And like I said, the Sharia courts do not overrule in UK laws and courts, and if anybody feels that they've been pressured, they have the UK law on their side to go and do that. Arbitration only happens when the two sides are happy with the decision.
But are all women able to
outcome.
do that? Are all women able to do that? Because it has been documented that women have faced some discriminatory treatment under these types of councils, these Sharia courts. Are they always able to then go to the UK law, or is there a pressure to sort of stick within the Sharia way of doing things?
There's never a pressure for Sharia way of doing things. I'm born and bred in the United Kingdom, and we always, there's always an opportunity for somebody who feels pressured to use the law, and if they're feeling that they're under domestic pressure, domestic violence of any nature, they should always contact the police. They should always contact the UK courts. This is not a parallel system. This is an advantageous system which helps the backlog, and it helps people resolve things without costly lawyers being involved and costly court time. And by the way, some of these issues can be resolved really, really quickly within the Sharia system, which could drag on for years and years if they were through the normal court system.
I suppose this is one to throw over to Sam. I mean, the points you raise are valid and noteworthy of coercion, and we should be deeply concerned for individuals' rights in all of this process. Is that a fault with the courts themselves, or is that not something amongst the community that needs to be looked into rather than the institutions?
Oh, well, absolutely, it's a deeper problem. But we shouldn't be lending legitimacy to organisations which help to entrench those social issues. So, look, it is a nonsense to pretend that people can simply complain about it, go and seek redress elsewhere. If your financial life, if your familial life, if your social life, if your cultural life, if your religious life depend upon a particular community, it is going to be very difficult for you to run away to a court and to ask for a different judgment if you're unhappy with the ruling of a Sharia council. On paper, absolutely, that is something you can do. But in practice, it is not going to be possible for a lot of people. And as a deeper point, it's not just about these individuals. We shouldn't be giving credence to an alternative source of community law. Yes, it isn't binding in the same way, but it is still a legal system.
Yeah, I mean, Naveed, is it true that, for example, men who want a divorce, an Islamic divorce, can end their marriage just by saying divorce 3 times, but it's far more difficult for women to do the same? And also that, things like polygamy are sort of allowed under the Sharia Council. So that is very different from sort of traditional British culture and what's going on elsewhere, isn't it?
So a lot of times you have to remember people who have migrated into Britain have been married abroad under different sets of rules, and that's where Sharia law really does help. If 2 people of Muslim background have been married in the United Kingdom under UK laws, no polygamy is allowed, and no Sharia law will come into that. Those rules are very strict. But it's when people have been married abroad and under a different set of rules, and they're not living in those countries, they're now living in the UK, this is where Sharia laws really do help out. And when it comes to what Sam is saying about, women's rights are a total separate issue. We have misogyny, we have hard-fought, women's rights. Even just recently, when the Prime Minister has said that, he's not going to give the Waspy women their rights under, the money that should have been entitled to them. We have so many issues with women's rights. Domestic violence is rising.
I think that's a stretch to compare those.
Domestic violence is rising all the time. Women's rights are always hard fought, but that is something that, as a nation, we're working towards.
I mean, equality for divorce and marriage and domestic violence and things, I think that's different from, Waspy women not getting compensation.
What I'm saying is that women have always had a hard grasp, hard fought to even getting 100 years ago, getting the vote. Women have always had it hard. I've got 2 daughters. I know how difficult it is for women. And, we would never be, in our community, we are working hard, and we understand that these patriarchal systems and, man-heavy subjects are always there. And we are working hard within our communities to make sure our younger generation of females are coming forward and are being educated within the British system and understanding what their laws and what the rules are there to protect them, so that they don't go into relationships and marriages which are going to affect them, in a negative impact going forward.
OK, should we give Sam 20 seconds? You've got 20 seconds. Any further thoughts, if you've got any?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpick there. Least of all the Waspy women stuff, which I'll stay well away from. But the core point is that whatever Naveed's got to say, what endorsing the Sharia Council does to the British legal system is it does give a sheen of legitimacy to a completely foreign and separate body of legal, ethical and cultural norms. We shouldn't be endorsing it. We should have a single body of family law in this country, and it should be based on the norms that have grown up in this country over thousands of years.
OK, well, Naveed Asghar and Sam Bidwell, thanks so much to the both of you for a spirited debate. Really appreciate both of your points of view here on GB News.
OK, and from Sharia courts to winter sun. It could be coming in the coming weeks, but you don't have to search for the forecast. You've got it now. European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
There will actually be some hazardous weather across parts of southern Europe through the next few days, with a strong Mistral wind developing over southern France and into Corsica, leading gusts here of around 70 miles per hour and some hefty showers with that as well. Further east, and we have some heavy thunderstorms pushing across parts of Greece and into Turkey, and here we could see rainfall totals building up to around 200 millimetres. Elsewhere, there will be some fine weather around, with temperatures near or a little bit below average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Well,
yes, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News, and coming up, Prince Andrew misses out on another royal family Christmas tradition. Oh, this guy can't catch a break. Just how lonely could the Duke of York be this Christmas?
Oh.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about
really?
that.
What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
know what Tom says in the breaks.
And Emily.
And Emily, I'm just as bad.
Merry Christmas, Britain. The royal family is hosting their annual pre-Christmas lunch at Buckingham Palace today, quite a bit early. So, I mean, Christmas isn't for a while. But Prince Andrew will not be part of the early celebrations.
Yes, the Duke of York decided to pull out of the occasion after reportedly speaking to his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Now, Andrew has already withdrawn from joining senior royals at Sandringham for the festive period. So whose decision was this?
Well, we're joined by our very own royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, I suppose this became inevitable. As soon as you pull out of the main Christmas do, everything else trickles down.
Yeah, exactly. So what's happening at Buckingham Palace right now is what we call the extended Christmas lunch. So those who don't quite make the invite list to Sandringham get a nice slap-up meal at Buckingham Palace instead around a week before. So from my understanding, and I do know this, it was actually Sarah, Duchess of York, who persuaded Prince Andrew that it was not going to be a good idea to attend this lunch. Why Prince Andrew couldn't come to this decision himself, we'll never know. Of course, we've already talked in the past, haven't we, about his poor judgment in certain situations. Very difficult situation for the king, because on the one hand, Andrew is his brother, on the other, he is head of state, and the picture of Andrew being driven into the monarchy HQ of Buckingham Palace for a slap-up lunch as he's in the middle of this alleged spy scandal wouldn't have been great for the monarchy.
This is the undercard B-team lunch today.
Yes, this is the B-team lunch. The B-team lunch, which the Prince and Princess of Wales have also decided not to go to. So they are already in Norfolk with their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. I'm told that was always the plan. This is absolutely nothing to do with Prince Andrew. They were always going to be in Sandringham ahead of time.
Lunch? I mean, just
it's all the cousins and the aunt. No, it's all the cousins and the aunts. It will be Princess Margaret's children and grandchildren, so Sarah Chatto, Sam Chatto, Arthur Chatto. It will be the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, Duke of Kent, usually Beatrice there, we believe, as well. Well, the daughters of the daughters of Prince Andrew might be there as well. You never know. They're kind of in favour.
But you know, last time we spoke about this on this show, received quite a lot of comments saying, you know, no love for Prince Andrew, but they did say, you know, why shouldn't Prince Andrew have a family lunch like everyone else? I mean, a lot of people will invite their, you know, toe rag brother-in-law or their toe rag uncle who's disgraced to Christmas, because Christmas is one of those times where, love them or loathe them, you're with your family.
Yeah, it is difficult. I honestly thought that he would still go to Sandringham, but just wouldn't attend the public Christmas walk where there's cameras, but he'd still be inside the building having lunch with his family. But that's not happening. He's staying in Windsor, in Royal Lodge with Sarah, and perhaps he'll invite some others as well. I honestly, I couldn't tell you. I'm not in Buckingham Palace, so I do not know exactly what was said to Prince Andrew, but the advice was to him, I know, that it's a good idea for him to stay away, which suggests that the royal family, particularly the working royals, the king in particular, is taking these allegations incredibly seriously, trying to distance himself from his brother, or at least the Duchess of York is realising that it's not a good look for the king and his brothers to be there at the same time when all this spy scandal stuff is going on. So until that is all concluded, I suspect we're not going to see Prince Andrew in the spotlight anytime soon.
I suppose this is the sort of internal conflict between the family and the firm, and perhaps the firm has won out in this instance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, you look back to the fallout of the Emily Maitlis Newsnight interview in 2019, I thought that we'd never see Prince Andrew again in the spotlight, but slowly but surely he started trickling back into public life. We saw him escort his late mother, the Queen, into the memorial service at Westminster Abbey in 2022 for that service. We saw him lead the royal family, or what was left of them, for the memorial service of King Constantine of Greece a few months ago in Windsor, because Prince and Princess of Wales, King and Queen, out of action. So he is occasionally cropping up, and the public don't seem too bothered about it.
Although, of course, he no longer is an HRH.
No.
And he has lost all sorts of military honours and all the rest of it.
Yeah, he's lost all his military titles and patronages. He is still the Duke of York, and the only people who can remove that title, if they so wish, would be MPs, because it needs an Act of Parliament to remove that. The last time it happened, 1917, during the First World War, to remove all of the German prince titles.
Right, well, Cameron Walker, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on that one. Merry Christmas, Britain. We're on GB News now. Coming up, water bills rise yet again, but can the government afford another flood of backlash? That's next after the weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into this evening, we'll see showers die away, leaving plenty of dry spells overnight. Staying fairly cold, though, with some rain arriving later from the northwest. And the reason it's felt a lot chillier this afternoon is because we've got a cold northerly flow of air which is stretching across the country. Plenty of isobars on the chart too, which is adding on to that brisk northwesterly flow of air too. But largely as we head into this evening, there'll be plenty of clear skies as we see those showers die away. Too breezy for a widespread frost, though we may see some pockets around sheltered rural areas. And then by the time we reach dawn, we'll see some outbreaks of rain just start to clip western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland too. And it will start to turn quite blustery here too by the time we reach Friday morning. Then through the course of Friday, we'll continue to see these outbreaks of rain slowly edge their way southeastwards. Looking at the brighter colours, we can see that rain is going to be quite heavy and persistent at times, particularly as it starts to move its way into western coasts, similar towards western parts of Northern Ireland too. This rain could be quite heavy at times. Largely dry elsewhere, though we can't rule out a few showers across Wales and parts of southwest England. And there will still be plenty of dry weather around on Friday, away from this area of rain, which will continue to gradually move its way southeastwards, and this still once again heavy and persistent at times. But to the far north of this, it will turn clearer, though still once again fairly blustery showers moving in around coasts. These could be heavy with some hail at times, may even see some snow across some hilly areas. Temperatures up by a degree or two, but still feeling fairly chilly in those brisk northwesterly winds. Then through the course of the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to that area of cloud and rain as it moves its way towards the southwest. Clearer behind, though we will gradually see some more outbreaks of rain move their way in from the northwest. And fairly unsettled over the weekend with some strong winds at times, so do stay up to date with our warnings. Bye for now.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is some of her delicious hummus. We both love hummus. This is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here. So can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No,
I think
it's always chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafibre or water to help with consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, look, I'm not a vegan, I love my steaks, I'll just get out of there now. But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods. So algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods For me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top.
That sounds
and there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 19th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Water rip-off. As your bill jumps to nearly 600 quid a year from April, water bosses are cleaning up with six-figure bonuses. But will they clean up your local river?
And stop that money. The head of the Electoral Commission says the rules around political donations need strengthening. This amid reports Elon Musk is set to donate up to $100 million to the Reform Party. Why is the Electoral Commission being so outspoken?
Up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's betrayal, in their words, of the Waspy women. That's if they get a vote. Could this destabilise an already weakened Prime Minister?
And in other news, it could be a rather lonely Christmas for Prince Andrew this year. He's decided to stay away from the royal family's retreat at Sandringham. And he's also now going to miss his family's traditional pre-Christmas lunch at Buckingham Palace. Andrew Bard.
So, are our rivers full of the proverbial? And if so, do we need to pay more for our water to clean them up?
I mean, Southern Water. OK, so if you're currently spending £420 on your bill, that's what your bill is, by 2029, it's going to be 642. That's a whopping 53% increase. We've been talking about this sort of 31% increase, the average. That is very much an average. There are some areas of the country where I'm sorry to tell you, and I don't know where you live, but I'm sorry to tell you that it could be going up more. We're looking at, the 40s in some areas of Wales. We're looking at 37% in Portsmouth. We're looking 46.7 Trent Water.
Where's the lowest?
The lowest is South Staff's Water, 21.
Good for South Staff.
Oh, no. SES Water, minus 3%. They're going down. What's SES Water? SES Water. Forgive my ignorance. I'm just working that out.
No, SES, South...
Red Hill.
Oh, it's Red Hill. Very nice.
OK, well, you're getting a bit off your money.
Well, lucky you.
Getting a bit off your bill, I mean.
But of course, that's not the average is, of course, massive increases to these bills. I think that politicians here have been dishonest. I think that for years and years and years, politicians have said it's a disgrace that there is so much sewage in our water. We're going to regulate to make sure that there's none of it, and it's not going to cost you a penny. Well, they sold a pipe dream, quite literally a pipe dream. These pipes will have to be laid, but they'll have to be paid for. And frankly, if you put a new imposition upon a water company to make sure they have less spillage, they're going to have to pay to make sure there's less spillage, so they're going to have to charge you more.
Yeah, but there is also the problem that, these water companies have got away with sewage spillages that probably could have been resolved sooner. And people are angry that the regulator has seemingly had no teeth when it comes to punishing water companies that have behaved in an irresponsible fashion.
Or maybe it's...
Or do you just think there's literally nothing that the water companies...
No, I think the regulators have had too many teeth in one particular direction. The regulator has had... On price. The regulator has told companies to keep prices as low as possible, and there's been political pressure here.
So you think the bill should be, what, £800 a year?
No, I think that if bills had been a little bit higher a lot longer ago, rather than a lot higher now, you could have done the investment over time, little by little, whereas now we're in the worst of all worlds because of short-termist politicians.
I mean, those bonuses do stick in the craw, though. gbnews.com/your say. Please do get in touch, but it's the headlines with Katie.
Tom, Emily, thank you and good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat environment spokesman Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, according to Southern Water. The response to that incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems, which the British public are rightly angry about, will not happen again.
To France, where Giselle Pelicot has said that she never regretted the decision to make her trial public and that she respects the court's decision after her ex-husband was sentenced to 20 years in jail. 72-year-old Dominique Pelicot has been found guilty today of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. His lawyer says that he is considering lodging an appeal. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. The government has announced today a £100 million boost for adult and children's hospices, the biggest funding boost in a generation. Children and young people's hospices will receive a £26 million investment. The government hopes that the money will go towards delivering the highest quality end-of-life care possible for patients and their families. Health Secretary Wes Streeting spoke about the announcement earlier on.
Today we're announcing 2 things which are great news for hospices ahead of Christmas. The £100 million we're announcing over this year and next will help hospices to invest in not just the buildings but the equipment and the kit that they need to provide modern support for people, not just in hospice buildings like this but also the increasing range of hospice at home services. So it's going to make a real difference for people. And for children's hospices in particular, which are really close to my heart, we're announcing £26 million. That's an increase in previous grant funding that's been available to provide a wider range of services to a wider range of children and young people.
Elsewhere, 2 13-year-old boys believed to be Britain's youngest knife murderers have had the minimum terms of their life sentences increased. The 2 boys, who cannot be identified, were given life sentences with minimum terms of 8.5 years for the murder of 19-year-old Sean Zahahi in Wolverhampton on the 13th of November last year. Those sentences have now been increased to 10 years. A neo-Nazi who amassed a collection of weapons at his home and discussed an attack on an LGBT group has been jailed for 10 years. 55-year-old Alan Edward was detained after armed police swooped in on his house in Falkirk in September 2022. Police Scotland said a number of weapons were seized, describing it as an armoury. 14 knives were discovered and some were adorned with Nazi and SS insignia. A deal has been struck to save troubled shipbuilder Harland and Wolff. Spanish state-owned business Navantia has stepped in to buy it. The Belfast-based company, which famously built the Titanic, was placed into administration in September for the second time in 5 years. Harland and Wolff is a subcontractor in part of a consortium that launched a major contract to build new support ships for the Royal Navy. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Tom and Emily.
Right, it's been a big day for the cost of living. We kicked off this show hearing that the Bank of England has stuck by their 4.75% interest rate, so no easing of your mortgage that we can tell you about. We also find out that water bills are going in one direction, unless you happen to be under the jurisdiction of SES Water.
Yeah, well, lucky people, we've found that out in the last 10 or so minutes. So, I mean, very, very lucky people who live under SES, but everyone else, bad luck. But, of course, we want to hear from you as you tell us your opinion on the biggest topics. And, of course, we're going to head back to Liverpool and speak to our very own... Back to Blackpool. I'm genuinely illiterate today, aren't I? We're going to head to Blackpool, where Sophie Reaper is. And Sophie, please relieve me of my duties. I clearly can't read.
They're similar, Tom. They're both up in the northwest, at least. At least you've got the right area for us. But you're absolutely right. You're joining us once again in Blackpool, where today we've been talking about the issues that this seaside town is facing. We've been speaking, obviously, in the last hour we spoke to Chris Webb, the local MP. But we've also been speaking to local residents, finding out what their concerns are for their hometown. So on that thread, you're joining us now in the home of the lovely Ian. Ian, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for welcoming us and for my lovely cup of tea. I'm very excited to have something warm in my hands. You've lived in Blackpool now for, is it about 40 years?
40 years, yeah.
So you were here back in the heyday when Blackpool was the place to be, where lots of holidaymakers would come. What do you notice now about how the town has changed?
All the hotels, all the guest houses, there's nobody in. The council aren't doing anything on the back streets. The local area, it's just derelict. There's broken windows everywhere. People own properties, don't look after them. The town looks absolutely a disgrace. If it was up to me and up to the council, I would force them to make them look nice. So do them up. If they don't do them up, get people off the dole to go and do them up. Pay them. Go and renovate properties so that when people come to Blackpool, not just the front, not just the promenade, the back streets, get them sorted, get it in Blackpool looking nice. It looked lovely 20, 30 years ago. Doesn't look nice now at all. All the money's spent on the front, on big projects, and the locals, as far as I'm concerned, don't get a look in.
Speaking about money and money being spent here in Blackpool, do you think the government is doing enough to support Blackpool? And if so, if not, I should say, what more could they do in your mind?
Well, they could give more funding. The last 13, 14 years, under a Tory government, they've just cut funding for local authorities. You know, you can blame Blackpool Council, the Labour Council, and the Conservative councils that have been in, but their funding's been cut drastically. You know, I used to work for the council, and I used to do coaching in outreach centres, doing football, getting kids off the streets. And as soon as the Tories and the coalition government came in, they just stopped it straight away. Prevention better than the cure, and get something doing with the kids. Get the kids off the streets.
I think a lot of people would argue now that the Labour government, who have cut winter fuel allowance, they've seen water bills rise today, that the Labour government has something to answer for. What would your stance on that be?
My stance will be, I think they will sort it out, Labour. Rome wasn't built in a day. They've been in a few months. They haven't. There's nothing in the coffers. The Tories know that. They've lied, and now the Labour are taking it up, and they will, in time, get it sorted. Hopefully, you know, Blackpool will become a better town under a Labour government.
Ian, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. There we are. Ian's hopeful that the Labour government can sort out his hometown.
Hopefully. Thank you.
OK, well, thank you so much, Sophie Reaper, live from Blackpool. Fantastic to hear all these different voices up in that town. What have we got next? We have just seen that Prince William and Princess Catherine's card is on the way, but we're going to move on to the water bills issue that is hitting us hard in the pocket. We've just found out today that they're going to be increasing by 36% over the next 5 years, and that is an average.
Well, it means the average customer will now pay an additional £31 each year in costs. It's a bigger increase than the 21% rise that Ofwat proposed back in July. Now, Ofwat say that it's all necessary to address twin crises of pollution and indeed water shortages too.
Well, we're joined by Adam Cherry in the studio. Adam, tell us, I mean, it depends where you are in the country, but it does look as though basically everyone is going to be seeing their bills go up.
Yeah, but if you're living in Hampshire, where Southern Water serve you your water, you're in real trouble today, because 58,000 people without access to running water this morning, and your bills are going up the highest out of the entire country, over 50%. So they're the worst off. Thames Water, you know, they wanted a 50% rise as well. For them, it's about 35%. But they're in real trouble, because if they didn't get that 50% rise they were asking for, they were arguing that they were going to run out of cash at some point next year. They've already had a £3 billion loan, and that's supposed to keep them going until, well, beyond March. And if they go under, you know, the water will still keep running for customers, but it's going to be the taxpayer who will have to subsidise all that if they collapse.
And this is the problem with the industry as a whole, is it not? That, I mean, clearly some of these companies have been mismanaged.
Yeah.
But also, they haven't been able to operate as a normal company would operate. They haven't been able to set their own pricing structure, because they have to. They come under the purview of the regulator, of Ofwat. And Ofwat has had certain pressures on their pricing for not just the last few years, but for decades, meaning that perhaps because of maybe more a mismanaged regulator than the companies themselves, so many of these companies are now facing insolvency.
Yeah, and that's really what the Thames Water bosses are arguing, is that Ofwat haven't been very accommodating, and they may take this to appeal, because they can still appeal this and try and push bills higher. The problem they've got is the optics of this are very bad for them, aren't they? Because they've just been whacked with an £18 million fine for paying out dividends to their bosses, which run contrary to rules which were introduced in 2023. And the argument is, look, you know, you've sort of allowed this to get to such a state, and you're rewarding mismanagement. At least that's the government position. And you heard during the bulletins, you heard from the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, saying they're going to ring-fence this cash for investment. It's not going to go to the pockets of the management. Right, I know there is some scepticism of all that, because you always say, how do you ring-fence these things in practice? But that's the idea, is that it's either lower bills, this is a political choice, it's either lower bills or cleaner water, and the government has made the choice.
But this is the government making the choice. We pretend we have a privatised water system, but I mean, these guys aren't allowed to pay their staff or their buses what they want to pay them. Yeah. They're not allowed to charge their customers what they would want to charge their customers, and therefore they can't do the sort of investments that they would want to do. I mean, at what point are we going to stop calling these privatised utilities?
It's very difficult to have competition in the same way as you would with supermarkets or with other goods. So that's the difficulty, isn't it? It's a sort of natural monopoly water. So it doesn't function in the same way as, you know, a loaf of bread at the supermarket, where all the different supermarkets can compete fairly against that.
You could have a franchising system where they could lose the franchise if they behave poorly.
It's not the same.
Yeah, but it's going to take a long time to sort that out, right? There's an immediate cost pressure, and they've got to do something now, and this is the choice they've made, the choice the government have made.
And it's going to cost us all, well, hundreds of quid. Well, thank you very much, Adam Cherry, for that Merry Christmas news.
Yes, we've got lots coming up, including the Prince and Princess of Wales. They've just released their Christmas card. It's dropped, and it has a very special meaning. Find out next. There it is. Beautiful.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Locals in Abingdon in Oxfordshire have signed a petition to keep the name of their local pub, and it's called The Midget. Now, this comes after a university lecturer led an 11-month campaign to change the name of the pub, and the owners, Green King, have caved in. But locals are fighting back, and GBNews spoke to one resident, Leanne Thompson, for her thoughts earlier today.
I'm not feeling great about it, to be honest. You know, it's a pub that's been here for a very long time. It's called The Midget after a MG car, and they're changing it to the Roaring Raindrop, which a lot of people are not happy about. We know why they're changing it, but a lady apparently came in who was very upset at the offensive term for the name midget. But nobody here sees it as an offensive term. You don't see the midget and feel any kind of offence towards that. It's named after a car. if she was to actually come, she might actually know more about it, but apparently she's not even been into the pub. She's just heard about it and broadcasted on social media that she wanted the name changed because it's offensive, which as locals don't feel that way. It's the Midget. It will always be the Midget. And if you look, it's even still on Midget Close. So I don't know if they're going to change it to the Roaring Raindrop Close.
Do you know, you should walk into the Midget now and go, do you serve shorts? And just keep going on the joke. It's named after a car, the MG Midget, that was manufactured in the town of Abingdon for a while. The car was released in 1961. The Boozer was built in 1974, giving huge pride to the area. It wasn't named after midgets, you know, the Snow White and the 7 vertically challenged individuals variety. It's named after a car.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain, and it's 21 minutes past 2, which means it's time to bring you a royal update.
I had lovely royal Christmas news. You know, we've been talking about some quite negative stories. But the Prince and Princess of Wales have released their annual family Christmas card, and it is actually a Christmas card, which is nice.
As in, it says the word Christmas on it.
As in, it says the name Christmas.
Yeah, and it's one of these cards that you can leave open up on the shelf rather than closed by the looks of it. That's lovely.
Yeah, well, yes, actually, what's on the cover? Or is that the cover?
I think it's one of these ones where it's sort of bland on the back and then you open it. You've seen these ones where you sort of leave them, they stand up on the shelf like that, open on the side, like a sort of one of those photo frames or something.
Yeah, now you say that, I'm not so sure. Anyway, it has been an exceptionally tough year for the royal family, but the card does feature a lovely image of the family taken from Kate's video announcing the end of her chemotherapy treatment.
Oh, well, we're joined now by GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, the card has dropped. What do you make of it?
Well, it's a beautiful image. It was taken from the video that the princess released in September announcing she completed her preventative chemotherapy and saying that she is doing what she can to stay cancer-free, which has obviously been a huge focus of the princess's year, unfortunately.
No, and it's been such a terrible year, really, for the Princess of Wales, but there's been such positive news to come out of that.
Let's get it up again. I want to see it more.
Ultimately, we can see such a happy family there all together after not just a tough year for the Princess of Wales, but for the King as well, for the Queen. I mean, this family has been through a lot in recent months.
Yes. It does say wishing you a very happy Christmas and New Year. Is that what it says, Cameron?
A very happy Christmas and New Year. Apologies, I forgot to turn my mic on. But you can hear me now.
It happens.
It does happen. So, yes, a very lovely image taken from the princess's video where she announced she wasn't having chemo anymore and doing what she can to stay cancer-free as well. The Prince and Princess have already gone up to Norfolk to spend an extended Christmas holiday with their children. Of course, it's been a pretty gruelling year for them. But, yeah, this is just a final little nod to the public, perhaps, before they knuckle down for the Christmas festivities.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely one. I think probably one of the reasons why this card opens out like this is obviously the people that receive this card, they'll sign it. And I suppose if you receive a card from the Prince and the Princess of Wales, you rather want to show the world that that's what the card is.
Yeah, you do.
So you want to show show the inside of it. So I suppose that's a sort of thoughtful way to do it.
Yes, you do want to display it. So, as you say, we're not seeing the front of the card here. We're seeing the inside of the card, and they will be. I think anybody who receives a Christmas card from the Prince and Princess of Wales will want to proudly display their signatures, as well as the lovely photograph as well. Of course, they do it every year. We've already had the King and Queen's Christmas card, which was taken earlier this year in the grounds of Buckingham Palace as well. So it's just a lovely royal family tradition.
Now, I mean, people will, naturally, compare this card to Harry and Meghan's card.
Oh,
and
yes.
One glaring difference is, well, I mean, there are a few differences. Harry and Meghan had a few pictures, didn't they? Had a bit of a collage. This one's only one picture of the family. But the way that they've wished people a happy festive period. We've got Happy Christmas here, but Meghan and Harry said what? Happy holidays?
Happy holidays, but that's very American, and they do live in America, and Meghan is
Harry
American.
is not American.
He's not. Well, he's kind of an honorary American.
He's still in the line of succession.
Yeah.
What is he? Something like 9th or 10th? Sixth. He's 6th.
Or 5th.
He's 5 people away from being in charge of the Church of England.
Yeah.
He is 5 people away from being
He's 5th.
supreme governor of the Church of England. And he doesn't put the word Christmas on his Christmas card.
It's okay, Tom.
This guy, what?
Yes, well, he doesn't take advice from the British government or the royal family anymore, does he?
What if, God forbid, there's a helicopter crash and then Prince Harry becomes... Is he going to...
You can't say things like that.
Actually, that's treason. It's literally illegal to
back in the day it was.
Okay, I won't report you.
But were that to happen in a parallel universe and Prince Harry becomes King Harry... King Henry.
King Henry, yes.
And King Henry the Ninth. And he sits there, you know, in Westminster Abbey for his coronation. I mean, is it just going to be some bloke in a suit rather than the Archbishop of Canterbury popping a hat on his head rather than a crown?
Tom, if he couldn't handle being a working royal, I doubt he would handle being a monarch. I don't think there would be a world where that would happen in any, God forbid, situation.
That's
not coming along.
That's Cameron's way of saying... Don't be silly.
Oh, it's Christmas.
Cameron Walker, our royal reporter. All in jest, all in jest. Right, the Electoral Commission has called on the government to strengthen the rules around political donations to apparently protect the electoral system from what they consider to be foreign interference.
Well, it all comes amid reports that Elon Musk is set to make a multi-million-pound donation to Reform UK, with the party's leader travelling to Florida, Mar-a-Lago, earlier this week to meet with the richest man in the world.
OK, well, let's discuss this further with Charles Anous, research associate at More in Common. Charles, what do you make of this all? Should we start with what the Electoral Commission had to say, told the papers, that essentially there needs to be a tightening up of the rules. Do you think there does?
Well, I think ultimately the British public wants tighter regulation of political donations in this country. So we actually polled about this earlier in the year. And we found that a majority of Britons would support a cap on the number of donations that the amount of donations that people can make. But what I would also have to say on this is that it's vital that the Electoral Commission isn't seen to be deliberately interfering in an individual's donation. So what is important is that we have a fair set of rules that apply to all donors and all political parties.
So what you're saying really is that this could be a bit of a backlash if the government rushes through some legislation just specific or seemingly specific to Elon Musk and Nigel Farage. That would seem like they're sort of trying to rig the rules and rig the game after they've benefited from the system as it currently exists.
Yeah, Tom, what I would say is, throughout our focus group discussions, the strong sense of fair play that British people have is really important. What we don't want to see, and the public always talk about it, is politicians being seen to change the rules for their own advantage. And I think ultimately we don't want to see, the public wouldn't want to see or have a perception that, the Labour government or the Electoral Commission have shifted the goalposts. So tightening regulate donations, very important, but making sure the rules apply to all individuals and all political parties equally and don't sort of fluctuate in the here and now, depending on who's in government and the specific case, is really important to get to that fair sense of play that Britons have.
Yeah, it's very difficult, though, isn't it? Because this discussion has has gained some pace and interest precisely at the point that apparently Nigel Farage is having discussions with Elon Musk about this massive donation. I mean, it does appear as though a lot of commentators on the left, I would say, who perhaps don't want Reform UK to be polling very well, are most aggrieved by this and are most pushing for these changes.
Well, I couldn't comment on that, but what I would say is actually we did poll specifically on Elon Musk's donation, and this was back right from the start of the month, so before this story had exploded and come to more prominence. And we did find that a majority of Britons were opposed to Elon Musk making a donation. That did extend across all parties, with the exception of Reform. But perhaps, given that Reform would be the party receiving the donation, that perhaps makes a bit of sense. So, as I said, it's a nuanced issue. It's complicated, and it depends on the situations. But ultimately, the two key things that I would say is, first of all, we do need to have a reform of political. Well, the public think that we should have a reform of political donations to make sure it's fair. But second of all, is to make sure that ultimately, as you said, it's not really done in response to an individual circumstance, because that really undermines everyone's trust in the system.
That is a very, very funny situation. I wonder if a hypothetical poll were to be carried out and you ask sort of 4 questions, would you be in favour of a $100 million donation from Jeff Bezos to the Conservative Party, from George Soros to the Labour Party, from Elon Musk to Reform UK, etc., etc.? I imagine the column for each party would be in favour of the one for their party, but none of the other ones.
I don't know. I'm not sure about this, and across the board, something icky about it.
Yeah, but there's always self-interest that runs into these things, aren't
Charles
there?
Ennis, we'll have to leave it there. You're the research associate at Mooring Common. Thank you very much for coming on to discuss this. Yeah, the thing is, the problem is a massive donation of that size, and let's just say this has not been confirmed, so, a massive donation could actually be enough to swing an election.
Although, I mean...
And is that right?
But
is that right?
I mean,
you might support reform, you might not.
Look at the United
right?
States of America. Kamala Harris massively outspent Donald Trump at the last election and lost.
Yeah,
Hillary Clinton massively outspent Donald Trump in 2016, and Biden actually outspent.
But what are you
Trump
saying? So money makes no difference at all? Maybe she was just an appalling candidate.
Well, I think money can help, but often money follows success rather than the other way around. I mean, the Labour Party spent a lot more money than the Tories, but the money followed their electoral success. It didn't predate it.
Yes, people wanted to get in on the action because they'd seen the odds and they want to be on the side of the winning party.
Right, so I think very often we look, the winning side had all this money. Well, what's the reason the winning side had all the... Maybe they had all the money because they were the winning side.
Yeah, but people wouldn't be giving money unless they thought that it would help as well.
Yeah, but
unless they're buying influence. Unless they're buying influence. Is that what Elon Musk is doing, He cares awfully a lot about the UK, and he certainly thinks that Reform UK should be the ones in charge of this country. So is he not? If he's not paying for it to make it easier, he's paying for influence. There we go. Anyway,
although I think he probably has more influence than pretty much any MP at this stage. Yeah. Oh, this is good. Merry Christmas, Britain, on GB News, and there's plenty more to come on the programme, including the Prime Minister facing his first ever liaison committee hearing. That's the heads of all the committees in Parliament scrutinising him in in the House of Commons.
Yes, it is actually interesting. It is actually interesting. After your headlines.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Your top stories this hour. Some breaking news this afternoon. 26-year-old Kyle Clifford has pleaded not guilty to the murders of Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt at their family home in Bushey in July. Well, that not guilty plea comes after Cambridge Crown Court also heard a short time ago that Clifford has been further charged with rape. The 26-year-old is accused of fatally shooting Louise and Hannah Hunt with a crossbow and stabbing Carol Hunt to death at their family home in Hertfordshire. We'll bring you more on that story as we get it. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat spokesman Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, Southern Water are saying. The response to the incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
Look, I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems which the British public are rightly angry about will not happen again.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's going to be plenty of sunshine around today, though you will have to wrap up warm to enjoy it. It's going to be feeling much chillier than it has done as of late. And the reason for this is because we have a brisk northerly flow spreading across the country, bringing in some air from the Arctic, making it feel exceptionally chilly, particularly with the brisk northerly winds too. But otherwise, after some gloomy days as of late, there should be plenty of sunshine around. Can't rule out a few showers, particularly around coastal areas, at times feeding in inland across parts of England and Wales, particularly across northwestern coasts of Scotland too. Plenty of showers moving through here, and they may turn a little bit wintry as they spread into high ground too, but otherwise plenty of sunshine, just feeling much chillier than it has done of late. Now, as we head through into the evening, there should still be plenty of clear spells across Scotland, but once again, those showers set to continue. And in those brisk north to northwesterly winds, it is still going to remain chilly and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England. Plenty of clear spells, but a few showers feeding in at times around coastal areas. Still quite showery across England and parts of southwest England, but across central and southeastern areas, it should be largely dry. Plenty of clear spells as we head into the evening. And most of those showers largely dying away as we head into the overnight period, so plenty of clear spells, perhaps just a bit more cloud spilling in from the northwest with some longer spells of rain as we head towards dawn for the western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland. But under those clear spells, it is going to be turning particularly chilly, unlikely to see any widespread frost, but we may see some pockets in more sheltered spots. Now, through the course of Friday, once again, there should be plenty of dry weather around, but this band of rain will slowly sink its way towards southeastern areas, bringing some heavy and persistent spells of rain at times too, with plenty of showers still following on behind. But across the far southeast, still plenty of dry weather, just perhaps a bit more cloud by the afternoon.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Jules Buckley. If you're heading towards the westbound M62 around Eccles to Birchwood, 12 to junction 11, there's a breakdown there blocking a lane to be aware of. Some queues in the West Midlands. Firstly, half an hour's worth of congestion on the northbound M5 up towards the M6. And then in Handsworth in Birmingham, Church Lane is currently closed by Slack Lane. A collision being investigated, very slow on the approaches. Suffolk and the eastbound A14, junction 47 to 49. That's Woolpit to Stowmarket. It's blocked, queuing back towards Bayton Green at 46. So if you're heading Ipswich bound, traffic really slow going. 2 lorries have had a collision there. And if you're heading for the eastbound A414, Hatfield, Hertfordshire is currently closed at the Harford Road junction. There's been a collision there.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Britain.
We'll leave your club night stories to the advert breaks.
It wasn't my club night, someone else's, a friend of mine.
Well, Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 39 minutes past 2, and Sir Keir Starmer is currently facing questions from the Liaison Committee in Parliament. Now, these are the heads of all the committees in Parliament grilling the Prime Minister on his first few months.
There he is, being grilled. These things can go on for a while, can't they?
They really can.
It's not easy for a Prime Minister, particularly when there's so much to go at.
And unlike Prime Minister's questions, where you ask a question, the Prime Minister gives an answer and then you sit down, this is a back and forth, so there are follow-up questions. The Prime Minister can't just bat away a question. He has to get to the detail.
Yeah, he has to get to the detail. He has to answer follow-up questions. He can't just, dismiss questions like he might with the media or the press, like Prime Ministers sometimes do, sometimes are guilty of. But yes, there might be a big question over how Labour are going to deliver growth, because, of course, it is looking very stagnant.
Well, Chris Hope, our political editor, joins us now. And what will Keir Starmer be trying to do today? Because it's not really been the smoothest ride for him so far.
No, he might look back with mixed feelings on the past 5 months of being in power. 171-seat majority should be plain sailing, but he appears to have got stuck on issues we know, don't we, about the freebie issues during the August.
Okay, great.
The removal of for 10 million people, removing the winter fuel allowance, the tax on farmers, the big. A difficult time for Keir Starmer, but he has got 4.5 years left, and certainly the team I met in number 10 last night seemed quite relaxed. They recognise it's a long game they're playing here, not a short one. They're almost getting out of campaign mode, I thought, last night when I met some of the team in Downing Street for a drinks party, and more into governing, and that's the long slog, of course. Now, this liaison committee, these MPs questioning the PM are the chairs of all of the different select committees in the House of Commons. They're covering a lot of areas, but they're going to be focusing on growth from the economy, public services and the plan for change, global affairs and national security. It's his first appearance in front of this liaison committee. We used to see, of course, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson. They normally happen on the last day of the sitting day before a long break at the end of almost a term, as you describe it, in Parliament. Dame Meg Hillier, she's thanked the PM so far for appearing, and the PM has told her that planning reform is key to growth. I know that Tom will be pleased to hear that in the studio. Planning reform, he says, is how they're going to get this economy growing. He said Labour's first budget would deliver stability. And he did say, and maybe some comfort for viewers and listeners as they go into the Christmas period, he says that households will see and feel a difference, he says, in terms of economic growth. It will take some time, he says, but of course it will. He says that economic growth, the pledge to grow the economy, despite the fact we're no longer going to be the fastest, or the target is not to be the fastest growing economy in the G7, but he says that there is still a commitment to try and get towards the highest growth in the G7 by the end of the first term in power. So we
Chris,
are.
Can I just drill in there on those words, that
7 minutes in.
So it's no longer a target to become the fastest growing G7 country. But what were the words that you said? It's to move towards being the fastest. I don't quite. What was that?
It was an aim, wasn't it, in that speech 2 weeks ago in Pinewood Studios. And now Liam Burns said, "Is that pledge being retained? Is it still the goal?" Sir Keir Starmer says, yes, it is. So it's all language here. I think they recognise number 10 that saying we're the fastest growing economy in the G7 means little to people if they're feeling broke because of inflation or interest rates, the mortgage and the like. So they're trying to target, does a pound in our pockets go further, rather than this idea of this macroeconomic idea of the G7 growth.
Yeah, I've got to ask you about this whole political donations. I'm not sure if you can call it a row, but the government is being urged to change these rules, strengthen them even. That's what the Electoral Commission's saying. Now, this, of course, comes amid these reports that Elon Musk might be considering writing a massive cheque to the Reform Party. Do we have any update on that?
That's right. Well, viewers and listeners of GB News know that we've been talking about this for about a month now on the channel, whereas other outlets are just picking up the news now and getting cross about it, notably The Guardian. They've interviewed the head of the Electoral Commission overnight. Now, the Electoral Commission, of course, regulates political parties in our democratic process. He has said that that one idea could be to link donations to the size of the company in the UK, which would put a notional cap on any donation from Elon Musk. Of course, there are reports he wants to give $100 million, £78 million, to Reform UK. That figure is played down to some extent by Nigel Farage on GB News 2 nights ago. So it could be a big figure, and we think they are in talks about what size of figure that should be. And that's why Elon Musk is now starting to stir concern here in the UK. Now, in the morning lobby meeting today, the PM's spokesman said there that work has started on implementing all areas of the manifesto, and that includes this commitment to try and restrict the role of foreign companies, foreign organisations, foreign countries in our UK democratic process. And the Electoral Commission will feed into that. It's being led by Angela Rayner's department, the Ministry for Housing, Local Government and Communities, and see where that takes us. But talks are ongoing now about how to make it happen, but it won't happen in the current parliamentary session. The legislative timetable is set out already in the King's Speech. So there's a window of opportunity, if you like, here for Elon Musk and Reform UK before the government can get in order. But we are briefed. There are no plans for a cap, not least because, as you said, Tom, earlier when we spoke, Labour took, I think, a £4 million donation from a private individual. So the government doesn't want to limit donations, but it may want to limit Elon Musk one, and that could be complicated.
And the £4 million donation came, I think, from a firm based in the Cayman Islands, which of course is not well, it's offshore, isn't it? It's so I suppose that sort of falls in the same bracket. Chris, I've just got to say, while you've been talking, I spied with my beady little eyes Emily Thornberry sitting around that table. I don't think she's spoken yet. She isn't speaking now, but of course she was in the shadow cabinet. And then when the election happened, she was sacked by Keir Starmer. And now she's a committee chair. I can imagine there's no love lost between these two people. That might be quite a testy exchange when it comes. Oh, there she is. You can just see her nose poking out on the left of the screen. Just as we move our camera away from her.
I was about to say, she looks different.
Do you think that Emily Thornberry might provide a bit of a
she, of course,
exchange?
is the chair. Yes, Tom, of course, and she's chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, and she'll get her 3, 4 or 5 questions to the Prime Minister. Yes, she may want to. I think she's getting her mojo back. She was surprised as being Shadow Attorney General. You might have thought she'd move straight into government, particularly as someone of her experience. But no, she was kicked out. It was embarrassing for her, difficult for her. This may be a bit of comeback. We'll watch that very, very closely. I think Emily Thornberry is reaching out. I got a Christmas card from her today. She's reaching out to GB News. We're welcome on the channel whenever she wants to come on. I think she'll be very interesting in the future.
Absolutely fascinating.
Well, she is entertaining. Christopher Hope, thank you very much indeed, our political editor. I'm sure there might be a few testy exchanges during these liaison committees. I mean, it does sound pretty boring, doesn't it, liaison committee? But this is a grilling of an epic magnitude of the Prime Minister on the last day of term.
This is the thing. Some of those questions are just so pointed and so brilliant, and then others are really, really dull. So we'll bring you the highlights.
We'll bring you the highlights, yeah. But winter sun, could that be on the cards? Well, we've got the forecast to maybe give you a taste of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There will actually be some hazardous weather across parts of southern Europe through the next few days, with a strong Mistral wind developing over southern France and into Corsica, leading gusts here of around 70 miles per hour and some hefty showers with that as well. Further east, and we have some heavy thunderstorms pushing across parts of Greece and into Turkey, and here we could see rainfall totals building up to around 200 millimetres. Elsewhere, there will be some fine weather around, with temperatures near or a little bit below average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Coming up, we get the latest from the plea hearing of a man accused of fatally shooting 2 women with a crossbow. That next.
Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
More mouthful of David Walliams now and what he's revealing, what he's talking about. Josh, where do you think this goes? Because there is a lot of speculation about David, who he is, what he is. Where do you think this takes us now?
Oh, I think he's an absolute sweetheart. I mean, it was such a joy to spend as much time with him as I did. And the where it takes us is simply that I think we're growing out of, I suppose, the fairly infantile idea that we might have had about gender and sexuality, especially over the past sort of 5 to 10 to 15 years, where the culture wars have gotten so hot that it's become very, very difficult to talk about any of these issues sensibly without feeling like you're going to get pilloried or attacked from either side. And so Uncomfortable Conversations is a show where we try to have those conversations sort of heedless of treading on eggshells or triggering.
And do you think, Josh, that these conversations will become less uncomfortable when you get people like Walliams talking about it and who he is and where he's going, and therefore more acceptable for other people to open up and say, I don't know who I am or what I am, but I know I'm different?
That would be my hope. Look, I'm married to a guy, so I have sort of bona fides on the gay card, and I always felt that it was somewhat of a caricature the way the gay community or lobby, so to speak, insisted on a certain way of talking, a certain way of dressing, a certain way of voting, a certain way of dancing, that you can only be a good gay if you're wearing arseless chaps and straddling a giant inflatable penis while you're going down Oxford Street during Gay Pride. You know, like, I always thought, can't we have a very big tent? And I think what David is doing here is being honest, being upfront, saying it doesn't mean I have to join a team, it doesn't mean I'm any different from the person you knew.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 51 minutes past 2. Now, in the last hour, the man accused of murdering Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt with a crossbow has pleaded not guilty to their murders.
OK, well, let's get the latest on this with GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who joins us. What do we know?
Well, Carl Clifford, a 26-year-old, has also been charged today with the rape of Louise Hunt on the 9th of July at that property in Bushey in Hertfordshire where these killings took place. Now, he has pleaded not guilty to those other charges of murder, but at this stage, due to it being a pre-trial and plea hearing stage and this new charge being added to the indictment, he has not responded with a plea to the rape charge. He's also been charged with 2 counts of possession of an offensive weapon and 1 count of false imprisonment, also pleading not guilty to those charges as well. At a previous court hearing, we also heard that Louise Hunt had been restrained at the property. So Louise and Hannah being killed by a crossbow, it's alleged, and the mother being killed by a knife attack, multiple injuries being sustained on that occasion. But Carl Clifford, the 26-year-old, has pleaded not guilty to their murders and the possession of an offensive weapon and false imprisonment, but hasn't had an opportunity today at Cambridge Crown Court to respond to that fresh charge of rape.
Do we have any idea of the timeline here? Is this charge of rape alleged to have happened at the same time as these murders, or was this a more historic event that might well have allegedly led to the later event?
It's the same occasion on the 9th of July. He was detained on the 10th of July, Carl Clifford, after an extensive manhunt which stretched from Bushey in Hertfordshire all the way to Enfield, where he was eventually arrested as the prime suspect, the sole suspect in this horrific incident, but not responding to that charge today at Cambridge Crown Court.
A shocking incident. Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed, our national reporter, for bringing us the latest on that. Well, thank you for watching Merry Christmas, Britain. Don't go anywhere, because it is, in fact, Martin Daubney who's up next, isn't it?
Absolutely. So stick around for Martin. He's on from 3 till 6.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into this evening, we'll see showers die away, leaving plenty of dry spells overnight. Staying fairly cold, though, with some rain arriving later from the northwest. And the reason it's felt a lot chillier this afternoon is because we've got a cold northerly flow of air which is stretching across the country. Plenty of isobars on the chart too, which is adding on to that brisk northwesterly flow of air too. But largely as we head into this evening, there'll be plenty of clear skies as we see those showers die away. Too breezy for a widespread frost, though we may see some pockets around sheltered rural areas. And then by the time we reach dawn, we'll see some outbreaks of rain just start to clip western parts of Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of Scotland too. And it will start to turn quite blustery here too by the time we reach Friday morning. Then through the course of Friday, we'll continue to see these outbreaks of rain slowly edge their way southeastwards. Looking at the brighter colours, we can see that rain is going to be quite heavy and persistent at times, particularly as it starts to move its way into western coasts, similar towards western parts of Northern Ireland too. This rain could be quite heavy at times. Largely dry elsewhere, though we can't rule out a few showers across Wales and parts of southwest England. And there will still be plenty of dry weather around on Friday, away from this area of rain, which will continue to gradually move its way southeastwards, and this still once again heavy and persistent at times. But to the far north of this, it will turn clearer, though still once again fairly blustery showers moving in around coasts. These could be heavy with some hail at times, may even see some snow across some hilly areas. Temperatures up by a degree or two, but still feeling fairly chilly in those brisk northwesterly winds. Then through the course of the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to that area of cloud and rain as it moves its way towards the southwest. Clearer behind, though we will gradually see some more outbreaks of rain move their way in from the northwest. And fairly unsettled over the weekend with some strong winds at times, so do stay up to date with our warnings. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children and I'm really concerned about... I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think from memory it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box. So all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforced in the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line. And I think it will force the hand because they've said it's only 12 months and they will reevaluate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you and a Merry Christmas. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Keir Starmer is currently getting a Christmas roasting. As you can see on your screen there, live pictures from Westminster as the embattled Prime Minister faces the liaison committee for the first time, with storm clouds gathering on his betrayal of the Waspy women, farmers and pensioners. Will the Prime Minister have a nightmare before Christmas and get a good old stuffing? And the Electoral Commission is vowing to strengthen the rules on foreign donations as panic spreads that Elon Musk's millions could rocket boost reform into number 10. Is the Electoral Commission being weaponised by Labour to help keep Nigel Farage out of power? And Cynthia Erivo, the black British actress and star of the new Wicked movie, has blasted her critics, saying, "I am not a woke hire." But amid a growing backlash, does diversity in movies and indeed on the telly and in advertising basically just mean fewer white people? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. So, 6 days to go until Christmas, and Keir Starmer is being lightly roasted in front, not of an open fire, but the liaison committee. Do these things have any teeth? Will anything change? I mean, I was playing bingo a minute ago. Guess what? He said the black hole, £22 billion black hole twice, fixing the foundations 3 times. I start to zone out. But do these things have any teeth? And more to the point, isn't it funny how the Labour Party kept stum when there was loads of foreign money pouring into the Remain campaign from George Soros? Isn't it funny how when the Labour Party got a £4 million donation from a hedge fund based in the Cayman Islands before the general election, there was no problem with foreign money, no problem when Guy Verhofstadt campaigned in Camden to try and stop Brexit. Suddenly, massive problem, red alert, because Elon Musk might donate some wonga towards the Reform Party. Is the Electoral Commission weaponising itself to try and stop Nigel Farage getting into power? Is it one rule for them and one rule for the rest? Get in touch, gbnews.com/YourSaber. Now, here's your news headlines. It's Katie Byrne.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. Some breaking news this afternoon. 26-year-old Kyle Clifford has pleaded not guilty to the murders of Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt at their family home in Bushey in July. That not guilty plea comes after Cambridge Crown Court also heard a short time ago that Clifford has been further charged with rape. The 26-year-old is accused of fatally shooting Louise and Hannah Hunt with a crossbow and stabbing Carol Hunt to death at their home in Hertfordshire. We'll bring you more on that story as we get it. Sir Keir Starmer is facing questions from the liaison committee this afternoon as upset grows in his own party over the lack of compensation for the Waspy women. The Prime Minister is facing questions from a range of government departments and select committees. Right now, the questioning is focused on the state of the UK economy. The Guardian newspaper reported last night that up to 100 Labour MPs could vote against the government's decision to refuse a payout for the Waspy women. And it's also been reported that Sir Keir Starmer will appoint around 30 new Labour peers today. Sue Gray, Sir Keir's
former Downing Street Chief of Staff and former Labour MPs are tipped to be on the list. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 4.75% as it warned about heightened uncertainty in the economy following the budget here at home and the election in the US. The Monetary Policy Committee said it was keeping rates unchanged earlier this afternoon after cutting the level in August and again in November. 6 members of the committee wanted to keep the base rate at 4.75%, while 3 voted for a 0.25 percentage point reduction. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank needs to make sure inflation returns to its 2% target level on a sustained basis. Water bills in England and Wales are to rise by an average of 36% over the next 5 years, water regulator Ofwat has announced today. That's the equivalent of an extra £31 a year. The regulator said the increase would pay for a £104 billion upgrade of the water sector to deliver substantial, lasting improvements for customers and the environment. Ofwat is already facing backlash, with Liberal Democrat environment spokesman Tim Farron describing the regulator as toothless and defunct. It comes as around 58,000 homes in Hampshire are without water today due to a technical issue, according to Southern Water. The response to that incident is being coordinated by the government. Well, Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds spoke about the increase earlier on.
I think everyone recognises this is another absolutely dreadful inheritance the new government has, and the changes that have been announced, the work that the Department of the Environment have been able to do on this, means that we will tackle the horrendous problem of sewage in our waterways, that we will have a more efficient system, will deliver the level of investment that is required, and will make sure money is no longer leached out of the system by way of bonuses and dividends when a good service that the public deserve is not being provided. So it's a set of changes that deliver that long-term investment that will make sure these problems, which the British public are rightly angry about, will not happen again.
Giselle Pelicot has said that she never regretted the decision to make her trial public and that she respects the court's decision after her ex-husband was sentenced to 20 years in jail. 72-year-old Dominic Pelicot has been found guilty today of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife Giselle. His lawyer says that he is now considering lodging an appeal. The French court in Avignon has found 47 men guilty of rape, 2 guilty of attempted rape and 2 guilty of sexual assault in that mass rape trial. Those men have now all been sentenced and the defendants have 10 days to appeal. The Pelicot case made headlines after Giselle waived her right to anonymity, saying she wanted to make shame swap sides from the victim to the rapist. The government has announced today a £100 million boost for adult and children's hospices, the biggest funding boost in a generation. Children and young people's hospices will receive a £26 million investment. The government hopes that the money will go towards delivering the highest quality end-of-life care possible for patients and their families. Health Secretary Wes Streeting spoke about the announcement earlier on.
Today we're announcing 2 things which are great news for hospices ahead of Christmas. The £100 million we're announcing over this year and next will help hospices to invest in not just the buildings but the equipment and the kit that they need to provide modern support for people, not just in hospice buildings like this but also the increasing range of hospice at home services. So it's going to make a real difference for people. And for children's hospices in particular, which are really close to my heart, we're announcing £26 million. That's an increase in previous grant funding that's been available to provide a wider range of services to a wider range of children and young people.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Martin.
Thank you very much. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is getting a Christmas roasting today as the embattled Prime Minister faces Parliamentary committee chairs for the first time in Parliament as Prime Minister. You can see live pictures there on your screen of Sir Keir Starmer being lightly grilled ahead of Christmas. Now, with storm clouds gathering on multiple fronts, including his betrayal of the Waspy women, farmers and pensioners, is the Labour leader having a nightmare before Christmas? And meanwhile, the Electoral Commission is vowing to strengthen the rules on foreign on donations as panic spreads at the world's richest man, Elon Musk, pictured there with Nick Candy and Nigel Farage at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Could rocket boost reform into a significant position of power? But there are question marks over whether the Electoral Commission could be weaponised by the Labour Party to keep Nigel Farage out of power. Well, plenty to get our teeth stuck into there at Christmas with this feast. And I'm joined in the studio now by GBNews' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, let's start with this liaison committee, this cross-examination. It looks like a trial. It has all the hallmarks of a robust cross-examination. Is it? Or is it just more pantomime at Christmas?
Well, he's being judged by a dozen or so of his peers, MPs, senior MPs, who are committee chairs. They're in charge of holding the government to account across the environment, foreign affairs, treasury, and so it goes on. And their duty, they're paid about £15,000 a year, these MPs, on top of their MP salary, to be that person holding the government to account. So it's meant to count for those reasons. I mean, you've got, this is his first appearance in front of the so-called liaison committee. We saw Boris Johnson appear before in the previous years, of course, Rishi Sunak. It is built up as a real grilling, but don't forget, more than half the MPs on it are Labour MPs. They won't want to give her too hard a time. You're wrinkling your nose there, Martin. You're unimpressed by... I think it's got a chance here. We could be some quite fruity exchanges. I'm watching when the Foreign Affairs Committee chairman speaks, Dame Emily Thornberry. Yeah. She, of course, was not given a job in the government.
From the cabinet?
Indeed, by the Prime Minister. She may have a bit of beef there, wanting to make his time quite difficult. So far, we've heard from Sir Keir Starmer. He says he intends to use these planning reforms to deliver growth. He says it's vital to give us economic growth. It's hugely, hugely important. He says, asked about improving living standards, he says it will take time, but of course it will get there, but it won't be fixed by Christmas. Well, that's not a surprise. Christmas is next Wednesday. And of course, the economic growth pledge is still in place, we hear from the PM. Yes, it is still a goal, but the bigger one of being the fastest growing economy in the G7 by the end of the decade, that is now an ambition rather than a target, as it had been at the election time. He's defended the triple hit to businesses. He said it had to happen. It was asked if it was the best idea to do it all three at the same time in that big budget. We heard then, of course, the economy is broken, he says, and there was, guess what, a £22 billion black hole. You're rolling your eyes, Martin Daubney.
Well, I was about to say, because I listened to the first 15 minutes and I just ended up playing bingo, the £22 billion black hole twice. Fix the foundations 3 times, working people twice. Bingo! Full house. I'm afraid it just feels like a load of performative nonsense.
He just said also
I don't think anything comes of this, Chris Hope. Call me a cynic. But let's move on, shall we, to the Electoral Commission. And, you know, I was saying at the top of the hour, isn't it funny how every time the Brexit Party in 2019, when I was standing as MEP, the office was raided by the Electoral Commission over allegations, unproven allegations, in the fullness of time of there being foreign money. Then it was Russia. Now it's Elon Musk. They're looking to tighten the rules to stop this potential mega donation. My question is simple. Is the Electoral Commission being weaponised to try and keep Farage in his place?
The Electoral Commission is independent of government.
Is it, though?
Well, it is. It's paid for by taxpayers. It's independent of political parties. It is, by its own admission. The Brexit Party, I mean, that's ancient history, Martin, but it was bruised by that behaviour by the Electoral Commission. Arguably, maybe they're tougher on start-ups because they want to make sure they know where the rules are. We've heard today from Vijay Rangajaranajan. He is saying, he's the Electoral Commission CEO, he is saying that the rules haven't been updated since 2013. They're looking at whether an idea might be to limit donations to the turnover or profits of a UK company, rather than allowing Elon Musk to give what he likes, but limiting it to his outfit in the UK. So in the case of Musk's arm, that would be a pre-tax profit of 8.5 million in 2022. That would limit the scale of the donation. For the government's part, it is not looking at any legislation to cap donations. That's what they say is in terms. But they might look at a way of trying to limit the scope of any intervention. I mean, The Guardian, I should say, is waking up to this kind of story. You've been reporting on your show and me with you for about 3 or 4 weeks now.
That's right.
The issue of Elon Musk, that photograph last night, it would have alarmed people. In lobby this morning with the PM spokesman, he's told us that work has started on delivering that part of the manifesto across financial donations. They are concerned about foreign influence. I think they meant Russia when they wrote that into the manifesto, not Elon Musk, but quickly that's coming into a Musk conversation.
OK, let's continue this conversation now because we're joined by the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Kevin, welcome to the show. Let's continue this conversation about the Electoral Commission. I think this liaison committee feels just like a bit of a pantomime. The Electoral Commission getting involved in this at this point. Now, again, call me a grizzled cynic, Kevin, but I remember well in 2019 when the Electoral Commission raided the Brexit Party's HQ after Gordon Brown, not saying the two events were connected, Gordon Brown gave a speech saying that the Russian money trail needs to be investigated, and then there was a raid on the office. During a live electoral cycle, Nigel Farage then very much felt that the Electoral Commission was being weaponised, and now it seems, isn't it funny, that when there's some money in the air for Reform UK, all of a sudden the Electoral Commission are springing into action again?
Well, I think they have to be a little bit careful here about how it's perceived. We know that in politics, perception is often as important as reality. And if it's perceived by the general public or by a significant portion of the general public that this is being done to try and keep reform in its place, then that just plays into Nigel Farage's hands, doesn't it? He wants to be seen as this anti-establishment disruptor. And if he can turn around and say, well, look here, the Electoral Commission are getting tough now because it looks like we're actually becoming a bit more popular, then that might just help Nigel Farage. On the other hand, it won't obviously help their finances, potentially, if the Electoral Commission come down hard on closing loopholes as far as foreign donations are concerned. Now, earlier on, I was looking at a video of Richard Tice in 2018 criticising George Soros for being a foreign national trying to interfere in the Brexit debate that was going on in this country at the time. But now, obviously, he's very much keen on Elon Musk giving money to reform. So, you know, you're either against foreign interference or you're not. You can't just be in favour of it.
But Kevin, I think you're absolutely right. I too saw that video of Mr. Tice seeming to flip his position. But isn't it the point that back in the day when a lot of people, myself included, were complaining about George Soros pumping hundreds of thousands of pounds into the Remain campaign, nothing was done. The Electoral Commission didn't take action. It was because, it's fair game. Guy Verhofstadt was campaigning against Brexit, foreign interference. There was plenty of that going on. So isn't it, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander? If the money was good for the Remain campaign, and by the way, wasn't the biggest donation to the Labour Party before the general election, a £4 million donation from the Quadrutor Capital venture, and that's based in the Cayman Islands. There was no complaints about that. It just feels to a lot of people this is double standards, and once again, Electoral Commission gets its sabres rattling when the money appears to be going towards reform.
No, you're right. There has to be consistency, doesn't there? There has to be transparency. If it's wrong for one party to be doing or to be benefiting from it, then it's wrong for the other party, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum. You're right. I mean, all we're looking for is consistency here. And as I say, the danger for the opponents of Reform UK are that this actually, by the back door, almost benefits them because, as I say, it plays into this argument that they are the anti-establishment disruptors if it seems that the Electoral Commission are unfairly targeting them. So I think the Electoral Commission needs to be very careful here.
Could I ask you, moving on now, Sir Keir Starmer obviously being lightly grilled, I think lightly because half the grilling committee are on his side anyway. It's the liaison committee, though, today. Could I ask you, it's been a torrid 5 months, has to be said, popularity levels at an all-time low, backlashes over Waspy yesterday, farmers, pensioners. It's the end of year, Kevin. Let's have a bit of fun. What would you give the Prime Minister marks out of 10 for his first 5 months as Prime Minister?
I mean, I think if you're being kind, you'd maybe say 5. I think that's at a push. I mean, you've got to say, give them credit for winning a landslide majority, but they've not governed as if they've got a landslide majority. They've made mistakes at every turn. Going right back to almost the first days I've been in government when they decided to means test the winter fuel payment, I think they've been pretty much on the back foot ever since then. That row has dogged them. And now, just to end the year off, they're now annoyed. The Waspy women as well, again, another group of pensioners. So one Labour person said to me, maybe for his next trick here, we'll mug a pensioner in the middle of the street just to kind of put the tin lid on the year. So, yeah, it's not been great. I guess to coin a phrase, as far as Labour's concerned, maybe things can only get better. That's certainly what they'll be hoping. in 2025.
Well, Kevin Schofield, thank you very, very much for being a great sport. Thanks for all your contributions this year. If I don't see you again, have a very, very maybe Christmas. That's Kevin Schofield, the political editor of HuffPost UK. Now, very quickly, Chris, you've got something for us there from the Liaison Committee.
Yes, updates here from the grilling of Sir Keir Starmer by the MPs. We've got the balance right, he says, on the inheritance tax raid on farmers. The PM has told the Liaison Committee we weren't aiming it at a particular group. We want to get the balance right and protect the family farm. He said the vast majority of family farms won't be affected by the change to inheritance tax. Many viewers and listeners might disagree with that, Martin. Just finally, he also thinks, quite interestingly here, to get to the 1.5 million new homes being built by the next election in England, he says here that he thinks that the current environmental protections, he suggests, could be a bit too strict.